The weather turned absolutely bad. Unbelievable. What I saw the day previous to when I saw while I landed to what I was now seeing, sudden change. It turned blizzardous. How this particular thing came up was because Kal Bulkuma realized that the map that he was being shown had a straight line drawn from a point called NJ 9842 joining the Karakoram Pass. It's not one man who does it. It's a team that does it. Jal Chibba was quite forthright. He said, look, the Chinese have occupied Acclimatization because we were not at Acclimatization then. And since it's our area, we must occupy it. Pakistanis were sponsoring expeditions through the Saltoro ridgeline because between the Saltoro ridgeline and the Karakoram mountains is the Siachen Glacier. Ziaul Haq himself telling DG aisa hai, Punjab mein inko lagaye rakh tu and Siachen will take. So Pakistan is not a country which can be trusted at all. Here to sustain 10 men on top of Lolofond probably would have a tail which is of 40 to 50 men. When we were hoisting the national flag over there, just about reaching Lolofond, I find a helicopter coming from the Pakistani direction. He saw that these Indians are already on top of Lolofond. So he took a U-turn and went back.
Namaste, Jai Hind. Welcome to another edition of ANI Podcast with Smita Prakash. Joining me on this edition is my colleague Ajit Dubey, Editor, National Security. 13th April 2023 marks the 39th anniversary of Operation Meghdoot. It was the Indian Army operation to seize control of the Siachen Glacier, which was considered the highest battlefield in the world. In 1984, the Kumaon Regiment, one of the oldest infantry regiments of the Indian Army, and units from the Ladakh Scouts, nicknamed Snow Leopards, were tasked with the responsibility of digging into and controlling the critical peaks and passes of the glacier. Why was this significant? What role did it play in the India-Pakistan conflict? Did we learn lessons from the operation on the LOC, the line of control between India and Pakistan? And has it come into play when our forces deal with the ground situation at the line of actual control with China? To speak on Operation Meghdoot, I have with me Lt Gen Sanjay Kulkarni, recipient of the Param Vishisht Seva Medal, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, Shaurya Chakra Sena Medal, Vishisht Seva Medal. Thank you for coming on the podcast, General Kulkarni. It's an absolute honor to have you here. 39 years since Operation Meghdoot. You were a young officer then. So tell us what happened then.
Firstly, thank you very much to have invited me. I could not have asked for a better platform. Wonderful. Thanks once again. Now, going back 1984 that you referred to when we launched Operation Meghdoot. Of course, as a young captain, I was familiar with that area. And that is where we had that advantage. And more than anything else, it is, again, like they say in the army, it's not one man who does it. It's a team that does it. So I owe whatever, now that I am sitting in front of you, I owe it entirely to my men, my seniors, and the battalion that I was commissioned into for Kumaon. Having said that, let me tell you that in 1978, to begin with, for the first time, I got to know that something like Siachen is there. That's primarily because Colonel N. Kumar,
Bull Kumar,
he was the commandant of the High Altitude Warfare School. And since he was the commandant High Altitude Warfare School, he was taking some officers onto Siachen. And as part of the course, we had to climb a peak called Stoke Mangreen Leh. And we were also there. And that's where we found out that seniors are going in a different direction and that they were going to a place called Siachen Glacier. And that's where we heard for the first time Siachen Glacier. And not knowing that subsequently in 83 and in 84, I would also be a part of it. Now, how this particular thing came up was because Colonel Bulkuma, while interacting with one of his own foreign mountaineer, realized that the map that he was being shown had a straight line drawn from a point called NJ 9842 joining the Karakoram Pass. Now that alerted him as to how come this friend of his is carrying a map and has the point joining straight in mountains. You don't have straight lines. And because the Karachi agreement stated point NJ 9842, thence north onto the glaciers. And it wasn't that.
The Karachi agreement between India and Pakistan.
Pakistan, 1949.
UN mandated
Yeah,
agreement.
yeah, absolutely. So that is what it was. So he, when he saw that, it sort of, put him on this thing. He said, he requested his friend if he could give that map to him for rupees 500.
He was a civilian.
Civilian.
That mountaineer
I
was a
think it was
civilian.
Mr. Walker, some
Okay.
German friend of his, a mountaineer, who had done with him previous expeditions and had also done river rafting with Colonel Bulkumar. And therefore, he again.
Colonel Bulkumar was still in the Indian Army.
Very much. He was the commandant.
Commandant.
He was the commandant as a colonel of the High Altitude Warfare School, then located at Gulmarg and Sonamarg. And that is where we were interacting. And he said, then when he saw this map, he took the map and he got in touch with the army headquarters. Since Colonel Bulkumar is from the Kumaon regiment, the chief of the army staff then was also from the Kumaon regiment, General Raina. And then he got in touch.
Who became Chief of Army Staff later?
General Raina was the chief of army staff.
Oh, he was already
He was
there.
already
Okay.
the chief of army staff. So he got in touch with him and he was put through to General Chibba, who was then the director of military operations as Major General. And so he asked him, and Bull was very well known in the army for his exploits as an excellent mountaineer. He climbed Mount Everest, Kanchenjunga, Nanda Devi. So he was a very excellent mountaineer. So he went and obviously Jal Chibbar asked him what brought him here. He said, well, I have a map and wherein the line shown is straight from point NJ 9842 joining the Karakoram Pass and thereby...
So this is which year, sir?
This is, I'm talking in
78.
1978. 1978. So he was obviously, he said, is it so? And when he looked into it, he said, yes. He said, now what is it that you want us to do now? He said, before this cartographic aggression by the Pakistanis start, and Jal Chibba was quite forthright. He said, look, the Chinese have occupied Aksai Chin because we were not at Aksai Chin then. We must not sort of give away Siachen Glacier by not being there. And since it's our area, we must occupy it. How do you plan to do it?
So before we go on to the whole expedition of how you occupied it, you use this term cartographic aggression. If you could just explain to our viewers and listeners what that means.
Cartographic aggression means on the map, you start showing certain areas which have international recognition that it is yours. So slowly and steadily people start believing that this area belongs to the country that it is. And therefore, you find, like I said, the cartographic aggression, Siachen Glacier is in the Karakoram ranges. The NJ 9842 that is there is the last demarcated, delineated map on the ground and demarcated. It wasn't beyond that. No demarcation could be done because it's glaciated, extremely difficult to go there. And therefore it was said, point NJ 9842, thence north along the glacier. So
along the ridge.
Along the glacier. And obviously, if you joined it to the Karakoram Pass, the Chinese supposedly accept the Karakoram Pass as one of the points on their so-called LAC, but accept it as a point between India and China as a boundary. And that's a subsequent thing because they want it, the Karakoram ranges. We look at the Kunlun range, and in between the Kunlun range and the Karakoram range as the Aksai Chin. So we lost the Aksai Chin for a period of years because we did not have people over there patrolling and doing things of that kind in a manner that we could have shown our occupation then in 50s. So having said this, Jal Chibba said, let's occupy. So what would he do? So he said, we will go for a patrolling of this area. So Colonel Kumar decides to patrol with these officers from the High Altitude Warfare School who are part of the advanced course. And while he's doing that, he is buzzed by the, the Pakis flew their saber jets over them to say that...
Over the Indian Army
over the
team.
people who were then mountaineering this particular...
In 1978.
78 and even subsequently when
Okay.
he did it. So obviously Pakis saw that the Indians are showing interest in this area, which they believed, as I said, cartographic aggression, they believed that this area belonged to them. And
So
not
the
to
saber
India.
jets flying over the Indian team, was it some kind of an aggressive stance?
Well,
just
messaging to the Indian that this area belongs to us and you are not supposed to be there, because Pakistanis were sponsoring expeditions through the Saltoro ridgeline, because between the Saltoro ridgeline and the Karakoram mountains is the Siachen Glacier, which is about 76 kilometers long, about between 2 to 8 kilometers wide, about 300 meters deep. And this glacier is, the world calls it the third polar region. Extremely cold. Temperatures go as low as minus 50 degrees centigrade. You have wind speeds of going as high as 100 kilometers per hour, and you have snowing almost about 15 to 18 meters of snow in a year. So this kind of
Inhospitable completely.
absolutely, totally inhospitable, and most of us, except for these mountaineers, and nobody would want to venture it out. So this is what Colonel N. Kumar did in 78. He did it again subsequently to show this thing. And the Pakistanis sponsoring expedition, foreign expeditions primarily from Japan and UK, Austria, all of these people who were being sponsored to that particular area. So there were two passes on the Saltoro ridgeline. One was called the Lolofond La. La means a pass, and the other one was Siala. And so these two passes is where these foreign expeditions would venture through Siachen Glacier on to what would be termed a mountaineer's paradise. Lovely peaks. Sia Kangri, Kangri means a peak, Soltoro Kangri, Terem Kangri, all these lovely peaks that were there. So obviously the Pakistanis sponsoring expeditions virtually came to a grinding halt because none of these expeditions could come if the Indians are on the Siachen Glacier. So on the Siachen Glacier, you hear most of the time Pakis talk of Siachen. They're nowhere near Siachen because Siachen is hemmed between Saltoro onto the west and Karakoram onto the east. Very distinctly you can make out because Karakoram are black in color. Range is absolutely black in color. And you have Saltoro which is light brown in color. And between these two ranges is this Siachen Glacier. And if you read Musharraf in The Line of Fire, he says it very clearly that the Indians pre-empted them. Now at that point of time in 1983-84, Musharraf was a colonel who was part of the MO, their military operations branch, and he was privy to what is going on. And there, then 10 Corps Commander Lieutenant General Jahan Peet Khan, he was the Corps Commander, and they had the Northern Area Commander who was a Major General. He was again, I think, Peer Daat Khan, and they had the SSG, who was a Brigadier Mahmood, was in charge. And Jal Akhtar was the ISI chief of theirs, and Jal Zia was the chief of the army staff and the president of Pakistan. So this kind of a thing. And obviously when they saw that in 1983, when I had the chance of being part of Polar Bear 1 and subsequently Polar Bear 2 as part of the mountaineering, we used to call it the long range patrolling, LRP. And that LRP involved staying over the glacier for a period of about 80 to 90 days. And it would invariably be conducted from the month of June, July, more convenient months to be on the glacier, and terminated by September, October.
So Polar Bear 1 and Polar Bear 2 were in 1982?
83. In 1983.
And then 84, that is precursor to Meghdoot.
Op Meghdoot.
Okay.
And in 82, we had launched Ibex Hunt. So Ibex Hunt was a long-range patrol which was launched in 82. And 83 was Polar Bear 1 and 2 and Op Meghdoot in 1984 on the 13th
So
of
Polar
April.
Bear 1 and Polar Bear 2 was your first impression of the Siachen Glacier?
Yes.
And sir,
walking on.
this Bear 1 and 2, both, there was some difference
There's
of
gap.
time? Or
Now that's a very interesting question because there is a gap between Polar Bear 1 and Polar Bear 2. And why Polar Bear 2 had to be launched? Because when we launched Ibex Hunt in 1982, that was the time for the first time I got an aerial reconnaissance of the Siachen Glacier because we had just about gone there in an area called Turtuk. And Turtuk is part of Baltistan. And that's in our occupation, which we had
Part of Pakistan occupied Kashmir? No.
supposedly what we call Gilgit-Baltistan.
Gilgit.
71 it came to
Yes,
India.
Pakistan. We occupied it in 1971, Turtuk. And that is where my battalion was. And since we were there and this long-range patrolling was going on, I got a chance to fly with the helicopters to be seeing what Siachen Glacier is all about. And as luck would have it, 83, I was told that I have to lead the long-range patrol onto the glacier. That's because the officer who was leading in 1982 sprained his leg. So he couldn't go in 83. So as I was the patrol twice, they said, now you have to lead
Fortuitous.
it. Perfectly fine. So how we all took on this particular mission was in 83, like what you asked the question about why Polar Bear 1 and why Polar Bear 2. While we were in Polar Bear 1 and we were venturing and we were on the Siachen Glacier, to be able to get to Lolofond, there were 3 camps which have to be set up: Camp 1, Camp 2 and Camp 3. And even when Kal and Kumar went to on the Siachen Glacier, the porters, you'll be surprised, were paid the same sum of money per day as they would be paid climbing Mount Everest. So the porter who was there in Nepal assisting mountaineers to climb Mount Everest were being paid then.
Lolofond.
The same amount would be paid to the porters who were with us on the Siachen Glacier. So that, because who would venture? Because every porter carried just about 15 kgs. Logistically, we were only supported by the porters and, of course, by the helicopters over there. So in 1983, as part of Polar Bear 1, when we went up to Lolofond, I saw some rappers on the glacier. I said, so surprised, who could have come along this particular route? And then there were rappers with markings, which I didn't know then. They were whether Japanese or the Chinese, because the script
The
is
characters
virtually
look the same.
the characters are quite similar. Now, of course, I understand the difference between the Japanese script and the Chinese script.
They were Chinese rappers or Japanese?
Japanese.
I'll tell. So later on, I was told they were the Japanese rappers and some Japanese mountaineers that wanted to come that way. So when I saw those rappers, obviously on the radio set, I informed that some rappers have been found on top of Lolofond. And guess who came to see and interact with me? None other than the later General Bipin Rawat, who became the CDS. His father, who was then General Rawat, he came, who was the chief of staff over there, and he asked me, "Ye kahan pe dekha tune? Kidhar mila te?" I told him, I found
He
it
was
at
Northern
Lolofond.
Command.
He was in, I think, part of 15 Corps.
15 Corps, okay.
And he came there and he asked me, and he took those rappers along with him in 1983. Having taken the rappers and the Pakis got to know that we are on top of Siachen Glacier. So we de-inducted in the month of somewhere a little mid-August, we de-inducted. The Pakistanis...
So wait, let me interrupt you, because this is not something that many people will understand. What is de-induction?
Yeah. Now, what happens is, since I told you it's a long-range patrolling with a specific duration that we have to stay, so we go and induct ourselves onto the glacier. So since we have inducted on the glacier, now is the time to de-induct, because it will now get very, very cold, extremely cold, because the time that we are there, June, July, August, are months that are reasonably comfortable, that we can stay on top of the glacier. So now that we are de-inducted.
So both India and Pakistan used to de-induct in the winter months.
So Pakistan would never induct.
Okay, they would never be there.
They never had. The Pakistani officers invariably accompanied the foreign expeditions as a liaison officer to those expeditions.
Okay.
And they would de-induct with the party, which we had never seen. If it had happened, it would have happened in 78, 79 and that period. But
So
not
what did
when we were
induction mean at that stage? You'd put tents or
there.
you would dig in?
Induction meant staying on the glacier for the duration that we are supposed to be, maybe 60 days, 75 days, 90 days, whatever be the duration. So you properly pitch tents over there and you stay on the glacier. So you are inducted in and de-inducted from the glacier.
So for Pakistan viewers, Pakistan was not inducting before the Siachen conflict. Let's be clear on that. General Kulkarni is putting it on record.
Now what you just said is a very important thing. When we de-inducted from the glacier, the Pakistanis inducted.
Okay.
Now they realize that since the Indians have left the glacier, they de-inducted to see if they could occupy the glacier in 1983. Now this was revealed even by Musharraf in his book In the Line of Fire.
I've read that twice over because I can't believe that somebody could write self-praise so much.
I must tell you.
But Siachen really bothered him.
Two generals of the Pakistan Army, General Ziaul Haq, whom their own officers have written, lacked officer-like qualities.
Yeah.
And he became the chief of the army staff and the president and a martial law dictator. And they've themselves written on Musharraf, highly indisciplined, wouldn't take orders so easily.
And he's written that in his own book.
Taking
That's
pride.
what कौन कहता है अपने बारे में ये ऐसे, but he did
he
that.
was like that. And
Right,
he,
so sorry
he was
to
part
interrupt.
of the SSG also.
Yes.
Now,
Commando,
as a commando. Now, what had happened was when they inducted, and when they inducted, they couldn't sustain themselves on the glacier. And when they couldn't sustain themselves on the glacier, they inducted in the month of October. And they couldn't, and that was the SSG. And Brigadier Mahmood was supposedly there, tough man on SSG, commando brigadier, who subsequently was replaced by Musharraf. So Mahmood decided that his team is not able to sustain itself, and they de-induct. And General...
And how long could they stay there, sir?
They hardly could stay there. They came and they...
Less than a month.
Not even 2 days probably.
Okay.
They found themselves extremely difficult to sustain themselves. But they left a note for us. And that note that they left to say that, look, you have inducted on the glacier, which is ours. And they then, for the first time, admitted to say that point NJ9842 line joins the Karakoram Pass, and not as what the Karachi agreement said, thence north along the glacier. So that was the first admission by the Pakistanis that this line, now this is very important.
Cartographic aggression.
Now this is very important. Who joined this line? NJ9842 to Karakoram Pass. Now this also has a history because it's called the Hudson's line. The Americans did it. As Americans, as part of, for aviators to fly, they must know whether they're stepping into which country and, where are they like. So the Americans were being told time and again in 60s that, look, the whole of Jammu and Kashmir is part of India and you cannot have this kind of line drawn, Pakistan occupied Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir and all that kind of thing. The whole of it is ours. And therefore, this cartographic straight line being drawn was drawn by a person called Hudson as part of the American survey team. And that advantage Pakistanis took because they were part of CENTO organization. They were with the Americans, and the Americans at that point of time were perturbed with the Soviet Union having come into Afghanistan. The Pakistanis were training the Mujahideens to throw the Soviets out of Afghanistan. So a whole lot of this
geopolitics
was playing. And at the same time, when this was going on, Zia told his ISI chief at that point of time that, look, keep the Indians occupied in Punjab. And then only can we be able to occupy Siachen Glacier. Otherwise, once there's a confrontation, then we may not be able to handle it.
Yeah, 1983 was at the peak, Punjab peak
yeah,
problem.
Punjab scene was on.
Yes.
And
the Khalistani problem.
The Khalistani problem was there. The Soviets were in Afghanistan. The Americans were wanting a foothold. They were using Pakistan, the Mujahideens, the Taliban, and all these kind of things that were cropping up at that point of time. So you found that at this point of time, in the note was left by the Pakistani, obviously it was clear that Pakistanis are now trying to show some interest in Siachen Glacier. And General Chibba was forthright to say that we have to occupy. Nothing, we can't leave it. Default fait accompli nahi hona chahiye. We must occupy Siachen Glacier. Now that area is approximately about 5,000 odd square kilometers, and originates from Indira coal. Coal is along here, the Nubra River and the Shok River, which then meets at Khalsar, and then this river goes and meets the Indus and Skardu. Now, having said that, and they realized, and when they attempted to come in 1983 as part of, we re-inducted. That re-induction is what I call Polar Bear 2.
Okay.
So we went there, and by then the Pakis had de-inducted. We re-inducted, we again de-inducted, and that was virtually the end coming of 1983. Now the INT reports started coming in that Pakistanis had picked up almost 1,000 mountaineering equipment from Europe. So the entire Europe was denuded of the mountaineering equipment. Now this mountaineering equipment is the same as what the mountaineers used for climbing Mount Everest.
So you get intelligence from RAW, probably, or military intelligence, that Europe may
this thing has been picked up.
Okay.
I think it was, if I'm not wrong, it was Vikram Sood, who was then as part of RAW located in Srinagar, who may have interacted with General Hoon, who was then the corps commander, to say that, well, the equipment khareed liya hai. So 2 into 2, 4, You had something going on in Siachen.
Mr. Vikram Sood, Chief of RAW, who was probably station officer in Srinagar.
Those days in Srinagar.
Okay.
So he must have interacted with General Hoon, may have told
And
him
General
that
Hoon at that time was?
was the corps commander.
Was
He
the
was
corps
15
commander.
corps commander.
Okay.
And all of this area used to come under him. Now you have 14 corps.
14 corps. This is post-Kargil.
Ladakh. But those days it used to be one, that is 15 corps, under whose jurisdiction the entire area came in. So when this was going on, so General Hoon thought, when he also went, because if we were to launch, because the preparation had already started.
So this General Chibber and General Hoon say that we've got to do this. Now, in this kind of an operation, do you need an okay from the political leadership too? Would the Raksha Mantri have been informed, or is it need to know basis and they're not informed?
See, at this point of time, firstly, I'm just a captain at that point.
Right.
Of time. That's very important, because I would not be privy to all what is going on at that point. I'm only privy because I'm part as a mountaineer, being part of it, associated and training people, taking them up, ensuring that they survive under such harsh conditions. But yes, Delhi was taken on board. And that is where, when you see, Delhi gave a green signal. That was Mrs. Gandhi at that point of time, that yes, it could be done. The
Raksha Mantri was Mr. Venkatraman at that time.
Now, since Mrs. Gandhi was on board, General Hoon had very good association with Mrs. Gandhi, primarily because of Sikkim.
Okay.
When Sikkim became part of India, General Hoon was then the advisor over there to the king of Sikkim. And that is how Mrs. Gandhi and General Hoon were close. Now, when the OK came, at this point of time, Pakistan was wanting to launch operations. According to them, and what Musharraf says, the corps commander wanted it the 1st of May, because they failed to sustain themselves in 1983 on top of the glacier. So he said, let's do it on the 1st of May, much that Musharraf says that he was as part of the military operations branch, and they had suggested that it should have been March. They wanted it March, but unable to sustain, the corps commander, General Jahan Khan, said, well, it is better that we launch on the 1st of May. And 1st of May being decided, in January, they had picked up this entire equipment from Europe. So by Jan of 84, the equipment, the mountaineering equipment, has been picked up from Europe, about 1,000 sets by Pakistan. Obviously, that alerted the Indian intelligence to why so much of equipment had been picked up by Pakistan from there. And that obviously then put us on this thing. We didn't know what's going on in Pakistan, because it's only the book which Musharraf has written reveals
much
all
later,
of it.
yes.
Because he himself said that I was in MO and I was aware of what is going on at this point of time. And then when Ziaul Haq was being briefed, so he said, okay, Operation Ababeel to be launched on the 1st of May on the recommendations of their corps commander, to say that it is very difficult, so 1st May is what we will launch.
So much before Operation Meghdoot was put into play, there was Operation Ababeel by Pakistan to occupy Siachen Glacier.
To be launched on 1st of May, 1984.
1984.
So that is the Pakistan part. Now, for us, we were told that we would launch on the 13th of April, 1984. Because then Brigadier Channa, who was the sector commander, he said 13th is Baisakhi, and it's a very good day. Of course, eyebrows got... Everybody said, sir, 13th is supposed to be unlucky.
Oh, number 13.
Why do you want to launch it on the 13th? He said it's Baisakhi, and it's one of the most holiest days. And Pakistan also celebrates Baisakhi. We also celebrate Baisakhi, and there couldn't have been a better new year for us to launch our operation.
Yeah, because Baisakhi is celebrated across both sides. Because
on Pakistan side also and on the Indian
because
side.
It's a harvest festival.
Absolutely.
So they don't celebrate it as a religious connotation.
Yeah, but they celebrate it for harvesting, and we celebrate it as a new year.
Correct.
So Baisakhi was chosen as this thing. Now for that, General Hoon had gone shopping, and he realized that all of the equipment had been picked up. And then I was ticked off in one of the presentations by General Hoon when General Chibber asked me that, can you launch operations? Because you've been there in June, July of 83. Can you do so if we were to prepone it? So I didn't know the date or anything like that. So as a youngster, and being asked by the army
Lot of
commander,
josh.
obviously I couldn't have said no. That was first. And secondly, I said, since I'd gone there and I'd stayed there for so long, I said, by all means, sir. He said, remember the equipment is what you all wore in 1983. He said, yes, sir. I told him positively, same equipment, we would be able to do so.
Siachen, even during summers, it's
Very
minus.
cold. Very cold.
It's
Even
very
normal,
cold.
it's minus.
Did you? And even today we see this lack of extreme winter clothing. So what did you manage with in those days for your polar bear, ibex, and all these?
Totally Indian equipment.
Okay.
Totally. The same coat parka, the same trouser with two inners inside, and the shoes that you... Yeah, absolutely. It was perfectly. I thought if I'd lived with all that clothing on top of the
That you
glacier,
could do April
I can do
also.
it in 84 also. इसमें बड़ी बात क्या है? I didn't know. Then obviously
June, July and April में बहुत
then
फर्क है.
Hoon took me aside and gave me a bollocking. He said, youngster, you don't know what you've just told the army commander. It's not possible. Now, in hindsight, I feel he was right. Because when we were launched in April, and I must tell you, the equipment, of course, didn't turn up till the 12th of April. Now that was a big thing. General Hoon had gone to buy the equipment.
And this is also coming from Europe, sir.
Yeah, all of it was to come, and it was down. Down is an equipment which is of feather, and the down feathers are from birds which are there in Europe, and probably lakhs of birds make one coat because the feathers are so warm, and that's what keeps you warm. And the because of the down feather, the jackets and the trousers are so light that you don't even feel the weight of it. So they had not reached, and now 12th April हो गया सवेरे कुछ भी नहीं 13th April तो we were to launch, and I was told that you do a recce of Siachen Glacier and see for yourself what you had seen in 83. Is there any change, or do you see any marks of people walked over or something like that on the glacier? So I was taken, I was flown around the glacier. I saw all of it. Absolutely.
Chopper flight.
By chopper. So absolutely no footprints, nothing whatsoever on the glacier. It looked as
pristine and
pretty beautiful, class, as if nobody had touched it, and everything. Flew over Lolofond, flew over Siala and all of it, and got back. So we were ready. Clear weather, absolutely perfect. And I was also happy that up 13th April ko we launch, and everything would happen. 12th April at around 5 o'clock in the evening, in Me-8 those days, now we call it Me-17s. Those days the helicopter, a different version of Me-8s, they brought this equipment. Sham ko ye, because generally in that area, nobody flies.
Where are you right now?
We are at the base camp. Base camp of the
Okay.
Siachen Glacier,
Siachen
from where we are supposed to launch
Okay.
on the glacier. They call the snout of the glacier. That's just
These are your in tents.
we are all in tent.
It's still freezing cold there.
Everything is in tentage only. With my team, my company commander was Major Sandhu, VRC of 1971 war, and we were another two youngsters who were to sort of establish Camp 1, 2, 3, and also be reserve patrol-based platoon to us, with Captain Paramveer Yadav as one platoon commander, Lieutenant Gusai as another platoon commander, and the third was myself under company commander R.S. Sandhu, tasked for Lolofond. And Major Bahuguna, who unfortunately passed away some time back, and he was the other company commander for Siala. So Siala, he was the company commander to occupy Siala, and we were to occupy Lolofond.
So this Lolofond, Siala, and isn't there a
There's
third
another one called Gyongla.
Correct. That's what I
I'll
was
tell you
wondering. That was later. Okay. Yeah.
Gyongla story later. So this is how. So Lolofond, recce hua, sab kuch theek. I was happy, and then I was brought back and to be ready to launch on the 13th. So 12th in the evening at 5 o'clock, I find this equipment has landed. Now this equipment was in cartons, so many cartons. Now, किसी में jackets हैं, किसी में trousers हैं, किसी में shoes हैं, socks हैं, king, that is fire heater, so many things, goggles, the balaclavas, so many. Now, शाम को 5 बजे, if the equipment has arrived, and next day morning at 5:30 you have to launch, I said, chalo, andhera up now with laltains and whatever that we had, or maybe a generator, one bulb laga karke, first to be able to,
Sort it out.
segregate all of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And then people like me, we were suddenly have an extra large jacket. It will be almost, I'll be wearing 3/4 of mine will be in one jacket. So based on this thing. And the Kumaunis are also not very tall. So since I'm from the Kumaon regiment, the boys were same, and some are
So
here, some
Ladakh
Kumaon.
scouts wale nahi the.
Ladakh scout with her. Ladakh scout also had to be given the same equipment.
Yeah.
So the equipment that came and segregated, we always, the jackets and trousers was not a much of a problem. The inners was not a problem. The socks the shoes was a big problem, because the shoes looked almost identical whether it is left foot or the right foot, because they're special mountaineering shoes.
Oh.
They all look alike. So anyway, we found ourselves wearing those and ready. And we found this thing. Next day morning, early morning, we got up at 4 o'clock and all set. And then we found over 5 o'clock or 5:30 ke aaspaas, about 7-8 helicopters, coming to the base camp, being flown by the Air Force pilots. And they all came to the base camp to take us onto the glacier. So we wore that equipment and ready. With me was my operator, Mandal, or radio operator. So every helicopter could only take 2 people. And because pilot, co-pilot, and 2 of us in
And
a
the
small
radio,
helicopter, like that. So, and we were told radio silence. Nobody will open the radio sets, lest Pakistanis get to know that there is some activity taking place. So, the total radio silence. We were self-contained for 5 days. 5 दिन के लिए खाना पीना सब कुछ, you have to be self-contained for 5 days. After 5 days, by the time we would have established ourselves on the glacier, then of course, later company, we would have been in full occupation of the Siachen Glacier.
Occupation is what they said, 99%.
Yeah, possession of this thing is occupied. Once
Yeah.
you've occupied, 90% possession is yours and everything
Yeah.
is yours. So keeping that in mind, and we launched ourselves, and Mandal with me, and there were 2 more boys in the other helicopter. Ramesh, I remember very well, and Prakash. Now both these boys were with me in 1983 also. So I knew, we had that understanding with each other. So Ramesh and Prakash in the other helicopter, and I was in the lead helicopter, and that helicopter was keeping a watch on us, and we were to land. And as soon as we were to land, the pilots had already taken me on a recce before. So perfectly fine. I thought I'll land, and I was sitting comfortably. Suddenly on that internal radio set, he told me, Sanjay, we can't land here. I said, kya ho gaya? He said, no, you have to jump. I said, jump I will, yeah. No problems at all. Usko thoda sa niche hover karo, and I'll jump from the helicopter. But I'm not too sure how's the snow condition.
Why couldn't he land? Because not sure about
they were not too sure
whether it was hard surface or it was
helicopter. If it has to land, there are lots of crevices. Crevices are deep, huge thing, and this loose snow makes it look plain.
Okay.
It's only when you land, you suddenly realize that you have landed on top of a crevice, and the whole helicopter will sink. Totally, it will go inside the crevice. So the pilot, he was aware of it because he had flown. He said, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't land. I said, I wish you had told me when we can't come for recce only, we can't land. He said, now I feel that we can't land. And we are about 3 kilometers short of Lolofond. I suggest you jump. I said, okay, I'll jump. But I said, look, I've got one small aate ka bori with me. I'll first throw that from this thing to see whether the surface is hard. If the surface is hard, if that doesn't sink, then even when I jump, I will also won't sink.
You're not talking about para jumping now. You're just talking about
You have to
jumping.
straight jump. You have to open the this
jump
thing.
from 10, 15
Yeah,
feet?
they come down. They hover low.
Yeah.
But, you have to jump.
You could also fall in the crevice
Yeah.
if it is soft.
So
Frozen
to
forever.
avoid that, I told him, I said, yeah, aate ki bori hai. Let's first throw this so that...
That's your ration which you're
open
carrying
the
with you.
Door,
Yeah.
and once you open it, we'll throw it down and we'll see kitna sink karta hai wo. If it doesn't sink, it stays on the surface. That means it's quite hard, and you hover out. I'll jump. He said, perfectly fine. I saw it was on top. It hadn't sunk. Perfectly fine. I said, ready. I said, chalo, jump. And when I jumped, obviously my radio operator Mandal, he couldn't jump because he had the radio set that was on his lap. So वो radio set लेके तो he couldn't jump. So I jumped and I saw the whole thing. I walked around a bit. That helicopter, after I jumped, it took off. And I saw that it's okay. I gave a thumbs up. I said, no problems.
You can land. Okay.
So the other helicopter was also seeing this helicopter. So it landed with Mandal. And the other two who were with me, they also landed. And then the subsequent sorties started coming in. From the base camp to reach Lolofond, it would take us about 35 odd minutes for the helicopter to fly in, the next sortie to come in, because the same helicopters have to go back, refuel if required, take another 2 passengers, come back and land. So all this would take about an hour or so. So for that duration, you're alone on top of the glacier, the first few
You're not pitching your tents, you're not sorting.
and
no,
nothing. So far, we are just there, waiting for the entire platoon. We were 30 of us.
The height and the temperature, sir.
See, the height at that is almost about 18,000 plus.
You took off from 11,500?
About 11.
11,
about 11,000.
and reached 18 and half.
18,000, the height that we were. Lolofond is at about 18,500. Siala is about 19 odd thousand. And similarly is the Indira Kohl over there. So
and the temperature would be at this
temperature at that point would be at minus 20.
Ugh.
So temperatures are minus 20. It was a clear day. And it looked very clear, lovely blue sky and absolutely white all around. It was perfect. I mean, I could have asked for a better condition.
How many are you right now?
At four of us.
That's it?
That's it.
The first
lot.
So me and my radio operator and
Prakash and Ramesh
and we were there. So having done that, and then the subsequent sorties would have
brought
come.
the others.
So the subsequent sortie, and I found in about half an hour or so, Mandal complained of I'm having headache. Now this headache is very common in high altitude. We call it it could well be a part of HAPO, high altitude pulmonary edema. When suddenly you get disoriented, you don't feel comfortable. So he complained of headache, and I said, now you better sit down, do nothing whatsoever, and we'll mark the helipad. And the helipad will be marked because we have seen all other helicopters. We know exactly where to come. So that he was not able to talk. I said, don't worry. The next chopper that comes, we'll take you back. Now, he's the only single radio operator with me and who had to be evacuated. Even though he had trained so hard.
At Hawes? Even down?
Even down below where we were.
And he was there during Polar Bear also?
He was part, he was not part of Polar Bear 1 or 2, but he was part of the subsequent training. And the training was very tough. Since we were all part of it, we trained them very, very hard
to be
able to sustain. And, training at Khardungla. Khardungla itself, to get across this area from Leh, if you go, Khardungla is 18,380 feet. That's the pass you have to cross by driving to be able to get on to Partapo. So, all this training at high altitude, there was nothing that was left to chance. We were all.
But Mandal Saab is not well right now.
Mandal, poor thing, falls sick at the last minute. So, koi baat nahi. So, I told Mandal, now, aap jao, and you leave the radio set with us and you de-induct. So, he de-inducts in the chopper that comes next. Now, subsequent people start gathering. Major Sandhu was the company commander. He brought the entire team and we all settled down. So we were 30, now left 29 because one de-inducted within an hour of our landing over there. By about 11:30, the weather turned absolutely bad. Unbelievable. What I saw the day previous to when I saw while I landed to what I was now seeing, sudden change. It turned blizzardous. Wind speeds of over 100 kilometers. Nothing visible. We couldn't see anybody. I said, oh God, what's all this?
Aren't you happy you have this equipment that you're wearing, what General Kohl had said?
Thank God. As I said, in hindsight, I would say that you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Terrible. Absolutely pathetic. Now, the same choppers were to go back and troops land at Siala. That means Major Bahugana's team was to land at Siala on the same day, the 13th of April 1984. Now, this kind of weather conditions, obviously no chopper and nobody would come. Even we couldn't see each other. At not even 2 meters I could see anybody. It was that bad. Oh God, I said, ye kya ho gaya achana? Now, some who were part of with me in 1983 were familiar to this kind of a weather. So we could sort of understand ki kya hoega. But the rest of them who were seeing it for the first time, young boys, all of us were 21, 22, 23-year-old youngsters on top of the glacier. We were probably Colonel Sandhu was the oldest as a company commander. He must have been about 35 or something like that. Yeah, we were all young, 24, 25 and 21, 22-year-old youngsters, sepoys with me. So I said, yeah. I told them, I said, now pitch up tents. These imported tents had come, Arctic tent, pup tents, in which about 2 to 3 people could stay in. I said, first let's get into it and then we'll see what is to be done. Belafondla baad mein jayenge. Pehle let's hold ourselves on ground. 13th of April, extremely bad weather. 14th of April, extremely bad weather. 15th of April, oh, terrible weather. I said, ye dekho, ye kya ho gaya? 13th bad, 14th bad, 15th bad. Now 15th and
all this while you people were
we are
sitting in the
tent.
tents.
We are in those 2 pup tents, only clearing the snow because hum dab na jaye. You know, the snow is also, it snows so heavily, about 8 odd feet of snow in one night only. So we should not, so from inside, the boys are just, hitting that cover so that the snow doesn't rest on it and it sort of drifts off. And one boy will come out, clear the snow and again enter.
And food and water, sir?
We were self-contained shakarparas. Shakarpara is the standard food which we had at that point of time. We had chocolates. We had shakarparas.
That also must be turning into ice?
Oh, extremely difficult to eat. Extremely difficult to eat. But we had those fire kings, Those fire kings were from Switzerland. Small little this thing which would keep the tent warm. 2-man Arctic tent would just have this area that you have for this table. So इसी के अंदर 2 आदमी ने घुस के रहना है, अधिक से अधिक maximum 3 people can sustain themselves in these 3. Just lie down. Nothing else you can do. So you have your rucksack, you are there and nobody else is there. So that's all. And then you're eating those shakarparas and you're eating the chocolates that are there with you because there's no way you can cook. Because in this kind of weather, what will you cook and how will you cook? It's extremely difficult. That little fire king was enough to make it warm. So every time we would attempt to go out to Belafondla, people like me would sink up to waist deep snow. Well, not able to walk even 100 yards and 200 yards, we would be back. Now, around 15th, when we were attempting to go, I heard, come back, shouting, come back. I said, what happened? Got back. We found that Ramesh was no more. Oh. Ramesh died in the night because of hapo and froth in his mouth. And poor thing is no more. I felt very bad because he was a very good buddy of mine and had been with me in 83. I said, kaise ho gaya? So now the question arose. We got back halfway. We were to Belafondla. We got back. And now Major Sandhu said, now what do we do here? I said, sir, we have no option. Today is only the 3rd day. Though we were told to have radio silence for 5 days. And we are self-contained for 5 days. In one tent, there are 3 of us. Only the 2 officers are there in one tent. Otherwise, the men are almost 3 in one tent. And I said, now we can't leave him inside the tent and other 2 boys to sleep with him. It may, thoda sa inconvenient ho jaye. At the same time, we can't leave him outside. Just because he's no more, you can't leave him outside also.
That's the respect for a fallen soldier.
It's snowing, I said. It's snowing so heavily. We'll not be able to find out only usko kahan rakha hai. Because you will not know where it is. It's so extremely difficult to find out. I said, sir, let's open the radio set. And let's inform. Khabar kar dete hain ki hadsa ho gaya and one boy is no more. So sure enough, because of this bad weather, radio silence, there was enough kind of, halchal happening at the sector headquarters, at the army headquarters, that this team of 30 seems to be missing. They are not.
But they told you 5 days.
Yeah, 5 days. But Brigadier Channa did tell us that, look, boy, don't open the radio set for 5 days because, and sure enough, thank God, these instructions were there because had those instructions not been there, the Pakistanis would have also, because they had planned for 1st of May. So obviously anybody who's wanting to come on top of the glacier on the 1st of May on Saltoro would already be sitting at Skardu and Khapalu maybe a fortnight before and 10 days before. Otherwise, they just can't launch. And Musharraf himself said that it takes Indians 7 days to occupy Siachen Glacier. It takes us 1 day because their roadhead was absolutely just at the base of the Saltoro ridgeline. Okay. And they just had to walk up to occupy the glacier. So that they could have got on to the Saltoro ridgeline much faster than what it was for us. So he said, radio set khola. I said, sir, we have no option. Ab kya karenge? It is better that we inform. Otherwise, so we informed. And, weather cleared up and very nice of General Hoon. He flew in the helicopter and he dropped the national flag from the top onto us, and a small little, little bag with the national flag in it. And he said, we told him by all, indicating to him by signal that this is what it is. And he didn't land, but then he took off. He knew that we could send a chopper to evacuate and take back Ramesh from there. So Ramesh, obviously by then the body had become extremely stiff.
How do you mentally deal with
At
this?
that point of time, you don't have anything. You know that poor thing is no more. And
But you don't let emotions come into play?
we had, of course, that you do feel bad that your body is no more.
And so Ramesh could have been the first casualty of Siachen
Mandal
operation.
was the first one who didn't die, but was evacuated because of HAPO. And he was the first casualty of real
Siachen.
death.
Of Operation Meghdoot.
On Operation Meghdoot on top. And his name is there in the war memorial at India Gate. When I went there, I did see the name of Lance Naik Ramesh. He was subsequently being, given Kirti Chakra, posthumous. I'll tell you later how I met him there. And when this was, he was evacuated. And then we moved towards Lolofond. Can you imagine? I'm on top of Lolofond, just about to reach Lolofond, which is about 18,500 feet.
Sir, putting in context, you're talking about we are talking about the first casualty of Siachen. Ramesh was that, and now today when officers go or Jawans go, or even as journalists when we go, we know how much acclimatization we have to do, or for staged wise acclimatization, 14 days, 7 days, super high altitude and all those things. Now, when you people went in, there were no scientific studies on effect of high altitude, on what it could effects it could have on a human body, how you should behave, what you should do, or was there some kind of basic study?
See, we have enough inputs because if you recollect 1962 war, and since 62 also was fought in eastern Ladakh at Razangla, where Major Shaitan Singh was decorated with Paramveer Chakra. So we all, induction into high altitude is very, very scientific. As you rightly said, acclimatization is a must. So you have your 7 days acclimatization, 10 days acclimatization, 14 days acclimatization, depending upon the heights that you have to go in. All this training that we are supposed to be doing, because you can't. There is a saying, you can't be a Gama in the land of Lama. So that's a very
There's
famous
another
saying.
one which I've heard you say, pet mein roti.
That is the, I always call it as the mantra for mountaineering. Pet mein roti, haath mein soti, chal choti. That means you must have a meal in your stomach. You must have something to hold so that you are not swept off by the wind and this kind of a weather condition, or don't step into a crevice by mistake, and chal choti, because you should not get breathless. Because if your breathing is synchronized with your stepping, then it's a great success. But generally, most casualties occur because you don't seem to realize it. You're young and you feel, daud lunga, chal lunga. It doesn't happen. So they say, don't be a Gama in the land of Lama. So it's all these sayings and all have a lot of meaning behind it. So we all undergo what you rightly said. So we all undergo proper acclimatization. Entire study is there, whole of it. There's no question.
Even those days.
Absolutely, 100%. And but what happens, seeing is believing. आपको कितना भी पढ़ाया जाए, आपको कितना भी बताया जाए, it's only when you experience it first hand, when you see that wind blowing at over 100 kilometers an hour on your face, and when you only find yourself covered with snow all over, and there's nothing but hitting you, your hands aren't moving, and nothing is, baat nahi karne ko aa raha hai, then you realize all that studies are now coming to you, being told, because you only experience when you are experiencing all of it. You be told 10 times over that don't worry, in an avalanche you can, if an avalanche comes, just see to yourself, dig down and hold and seal. Where it is. Don't panic, don't do this. Very easier said than done. When you're in the crevice, don't panic. In the crevice, you've gone 40 feet down, panic, you don't know what's happening to you, and everybody is trying to motivate you, but you're losing your... so it's easier said than done. only a man who's experiencing, you find so many of your friends have lost legs, so many of them have lost limbs, hands,
Frostbite,
fingers,
yes.
frostbite, chilblain, insomnia, losing their health. There's so many things that are happening. So the man who experiences it, he alone knows the wearer knows where the shoe pinches.
Sure.
No, it's easier said. So in this kind of what you said, having acclimatized and all of it,
We finished with 13th, we finished with 14th, and with 15th.
With-
So before we reach 15th, you talked about General Hoon giving you this bag or
yeah,
putting
so
with the
national
flag.
national
Why?
flag.
Why
That
was
national
that?
flag I had to hoist it at Belafond. I'll tell you a very interesting story of this national flag also. So for that we hoisted, and when we were
On 15th, you've hoisted on.
on 16th of
16th you've reached
we
Belafondla.
reached Belafondla, and we have hoisted the national flag.
Okay.
So when we were hoisting the national flag over there, just about reaching Belafondla and hoisting the flag, I find a helicopter coming from the Pakistani direction. Now that helicopter, like we have cheetahs, they have llamas. That aircraft is similar to what we have, the llama. Where
American probably.
Yeah, a small little chopper with a pilot and a co-pilot and 2 passengers. It's flying right in front. Now obviously the helicopters have a limit to which you can fly. No? You can fly maximum 19,000, 20,000 feet. After that it won't fly. So as it is, I'm standing at 18,500. So high, how will he be going? He can't go to his extreme. So he was right in front. And so I saw their pilot's eye and my eye. We both are seeing each other. Now he saw that these Indians are already on top of Belafond. So he took a U-turn and went back. So now he must have gone and told look, we were wanting to preempt India. The Indians have already preempted us. They're already sitting on top of Belafond.
So this wasn't a satellite imagery or whatever. There were nothing like that.
He himself came and he saw for
Physically
him.
he saw.
Now, how did he come? That is also equally. Moment Ramesh passed away, we had to open the radio set. So moment we opened the radio set, obviously they picked up the radio signals. So when they picked up the radio signals,
there
they
is
knew
some
कि
activity.
ये तो सियाचिन के ऊपर हरकत हो रही है. These Indians are already somewhere here. So he must have been sent to go and see recce the area कि भाई देखो कहाँ है. So the only way to induct into Siachen from the South Toro Ridge line was Belafondla. So when he is wanting to cross Belafondla, he sees
You're already there in
at
Belafondla.
top of Belafondla. आँख से आँख मिल गई तो वो तो बेचारा यू टर्न लिया और खिसक गया वहाँ से. Now,
But you're carrying ammo with you when you're there.
yeah, we are carrying a weapon.
Which rifle was it, sir?
A 7.62 mm SLR.
SLR.
So that was the rifle.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So good rifle. Nothing wrong with the rifle. But the fact
It was
is,
heavy.
we are
I'm
not
just
going to
thinking
start
with all this ordnance to climb into that.
With that weight and everything
that's
and
what I'm
all of
thinking.
it, we have to
Yeah.
reach there. Obviously, the Paki pilot took a U-turn and he left. Now, the next day, the 17th of April, when Major Bahuguna's platoon, which was to be inducted on top of Siala, because of the clear weather now, they inducted and occupied Siala. So the next day, the same helicopters which had brought us to Belafondla, but could not take them to Siala on the 13th, on the 14th, on the 15th, and subsequently. So they took now this platoon of Major Bahuguna and landed at Siala, and they occupied Siala.
So Operation Meghdoot actually comes into fruition between 13th and 16th.
13th and say 17th of April.
Of April.
Everybody now is occupying
1984.
the passes of Belafondla and Siala. And at the same time, simultaneously, despite the bad weather, we were establishing the camps along the glacier. Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3, Camp 4, Camp 5, Camp 6. So if you have to walk all these camps, each camp went 1 day walk.
That's more than even Mount Everest.
Mount Everest required 3. Camp 1, Camp 2 and
And the peak.
peak. Camp 3 is assault, straight assault on the Mount Everest. You have to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then again, if you were to go on the Lolofond Glacier, you have to go on go to Siala. There's a long, stretch. You have to walk, establish one base camp, and then walk up to Belafondla. So all this that was happening. Now we had, rightly so, we had preempted the Pakistanis. The Pakistanis initial, of course, they had wanted it to occupy in March, but their co-commander, as what Musharraf says, suggested to be occupied on the 1st of May. We occupied the Siachen Glacier on the 13th of April, 1984. So that is how we found that all of this got occupied. Now talking about what you just referred to, the national flag of General Hoon. So since General Hoon had dropped the national flag for us for putting out on the Lolofond. We had put that flag over there. Then subsequently, Mrs. Gandhi, as Prime Minister, had to be told that Siachen had been occupied, and she wanted to come and see for herself also. Dekho kya hai, what is it like? So as luck would have it, the day she was to fly, it was total whiteout.
Which was still in April. We're still talking
I
about
think
it.
she came later. She came later in May or something like that, and not even something May, June around that time, and so when she was flying around, no, much later, because 23rd of June we had repulsed an attack of the Pakistanis on the glacier, and same time when what was going on in this thing, simultaneously Punjab also had the problems going on.
Operation Blue Star in
Blue Star,
84.
84.
Yes.
उसी वक्त June.
June.
And here Pakistanis launched an attack on Siachen on the 23rd of June 1984. And before that, on the 27th of April, the first firing took place on Siachen because we had occupied the passes. The Pakistanis were attempting. And how I realized that...
Now it's become a battlefield.
Now, not till the 27th as the first day. Now, I saw a crow, a white crow. I remember having seen a white crow in 1983 also once. And I see another crow, I said, if there's a crow, that means this crow is following somebody.
Food.
He's following somebody. He couldn't have seen our food because he's coming from the park side. And this crow is following somebody. And sure enough, the Pakis were right in front of us at a place called Ali Brangza on the Lolofond, on the Lolofond Glacier. We are on the Lolofond Glacier, terminates at Lolofond, and the Lolofond Glacier runs along Ali Brangza on their side. And they were sitting there with a lot of troops and everybody all seated. And that's where the first firing took place on the 27th of April.
But you're at a height, they are low.
Oh, much lower. They must have been at about 16. We must have been at
So
around
strategically, you're in a better position.
See, in mountains, whoever is occupying
top.
heights is dominating. And anybody who occupies heights dominates. It's extremely difficult to dislodge him. He can only be dislodged if he is found sleeping or is complacent. Otherwise, very difficult to dislodge. Now, when this had happened, this national flag, and when Mrs. Gandhi subsequently was flown in and she had a whiteout condition, she didn't see anything. She saw a national flag being flown in because of the saffron color and the green that was visible to her from this. She said she couldn't see anybody. She said, you were saying that there are troops over here. I don't see anybody. Neither do I see anybody living over here. And how could anybody be living in such conditions? But she saw some flag and she said, I can spot a flag. Who's there? So he told her, that's our post at Lolofond, and that is where we are. He said, excellent. And whatever this, she must have asked questions to the corps commander or the army commander was flying with her, and the thing ended. Then next day, I get
But she couldn't land.
No, she couldn't.
So that is why the first Prime Minister to land in Siachen was Dr. Manmohan Singh. Nobody came to Siachen all those years. Nobody could land.
Invariably, it would be bad weather.
नहीं but sir, summer में तो land कर सकते थे.
Even in summers, even Mrs. Gandhi's attempt was in June, July only,
but couldn't.
So again, bad weather only. So no, weather can turn bad. I told you 13th April in the morning when we land, perfectly clean, blue sky, fantastic. And within hours, everything turned topsy-turvy. So you can't, and when she came, it was, obviously, if the Prime Minister is being flown in, the weather clearance.
But did you know that she is flying?
Nobody would have known.
Nobody
would have known. It's only when you venture into the glacier that you realize that मौसम तो बहुत ही खराब है.
No, but did you know that the Prime Minister would be flying?
No. He didn't know. Not at all.
Didn't know.
And sir, when you talk about 27th first firing taking place, by that time, what was your, how many of us were there on the...
See, we were 30 in any case. And then subsequently, we were built to around 50.
50.
From 30, we became 50 because others came in. There were lots of people as key troopers came in.
So you're a young man at that stage. Do you realize the significance or do you just think it's another...
Believe me, today when I look back, I feel... people ask, you are asking me after 39 years, kya kiya, kaise kiya, kaise laga. At that point of time, nothing. We were enjoying every bit of it. We were very lucky. We thought that we were trained and that we are living and surviving. And every day was fantastic day, and eating chocolates if we could. And it was good time. Badam, kishmish khao, chocolate khao, kabhi khichdi bana lo, and good time. All youngsters and everybody was. But by then, every day, about 3-4 people would be hit by chilblain, frostbite, insomnia, unable to, severe headache, not able to eat, not snow blindness, can't see. So it was terrible. Every now and then these people, despite being trained, they would become casualties, because most of the casualties on the glacier are because of weather, not more so because of firing. So this was the 27th, and Mrs. Gandhi ka main bata karke I'll tell you then the battle. So when Mrs. Gandhi saw all this, and Colonel Pushkar Chand was the overall task force commander. My force was called the Zorawar force. So we were on thing. And the Pakistani, they used to call themselves the Burzil force. Burzil. So not Buzdil, Burzil. And the Burzil pass. And okay, they called themselves Burzil force. We were called the Zorawar force on top of Belafondla. And so I got a call from Colonel Pushkar Chand. He also, poor thing, is no more, passed away as a brigadier. He was also Mount Everest climber, and excellent climbers. So he told me, Sanjay, come down. No, he was a very nice person. He told me, Sanjay, come down. I said, sir, how am I supposed to come down? He says, obviously, पैदल चलेगा तो और कैसे आएगा? मैं कहा, sir, have I to go back again? So he said, that I don't know. तू नीचे आ जा. मैं कहा, sir, देखो, it takes camp. I have to first come to patrol base, then camp 3, camp 2, camp 1, then I come to the base camp. These 4-5 days of walking I have to do. And moment I reach base camp, you'll again say, Sanjay, upar chadh ja. So again I have to walk back. I said, don't joke with me like this and all. So, and the conversation ended. He thought probably, since he was a colonel, I was only a captain, and over there, a little informal. So next day again, he said, have you started walking back? I said, no, I'm still there only. He said, jaldi aa niche, main teko bola, you better come down fast. I said, sir, how am I to come down? Unless until you give me a helicopter lift, I don't mind coming down. And you can again de-induct me. So he said, no, you come down. You have to go to Europe. I told him, I said, sir, मैं ही मिला आपको टांग खींचने के लिए सवेरे सवेरे. So
why? Because it was improbable for a young
I said,
officer to
what? I said, Kal Pushkar Chand, trying to keep me happy, amused or something like that. He said, tu jaldi aani chahiye and you have to go. I said, sir, mazak mat karo. And I forgot about it. Again, he called me in the afternoon. Have you started? I said, started? I said, sir, you are joking with me. मैं ही मिला आपको joke करने के लिए. He said, no, you have to come down. I'm serious now. Please come down. I said, what happened that I have to come down? I've done no wrong, I told him. And I should be here only. He said, no, you come down. And he said, you have to go to Europe. Mrs. Gandhi has decided to send you to Europe. To 5 countries you have to go. Huh? I said, again a joke? Or me? Or koi nahi mila? He said, no, you come down. And sure enough, as soon as I got down, I was sent for my visa and passport and everything. I went to France. I went to Germany, I went to Switzerland, I went to Italy, and then I went to Austria. And Mrs. Gandhi saw this national flag. And she said, who it is at Belafondla? So they said, this youngster is there. Usko 15 din ke liye trip do.
Okay.
So I went to Europe as part of a team which was to buy equipment. They said, since he is now aware of the equipment that has come from Europe, he can also suggest certain ways to see that what more modifications are required. And I had my first trip abroad, kind courtesy.
Did you go back, sir, then to the mountain?
No, I didn't go back.
You weren't?
Because by then, by 90 days ho gaya tha mera. Because I was inducted in April. And, generally on top of Siachen, we send people for 90 days.
So when you were there, you could look into the Shaksgam Valley?
Yeah. Now the Shaksgam Valley is not towards Belafondla. For Shaksgam Valley, I saw it later. I was again posted there as Chief of Staff of 14 Corps. And then that time I flew over Indra Kol. So when you're flying on top of Indra Kol, you can see the Shaksgam Valley. And I could see the green grass. imagine. I was flying on top and I saw the Shaksgam Valley, which had been ceded by Pakistan to China in 63, which is adjoining the Siachen Glacier. And in the Shaksgam Valley is the Khunjara Pass, through which comes the Karakoram Highway, which now has the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which connects it to Gwada and comes from Kashgar, from Xinjiang province. Xinjiang province, Kashgar, comes down to Khunjara Pass, goes along Baltistan, Gilgit, runs along Skardu, goes as part of Karakoram Highway, then becomes the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and then joins the Gwada.
That part of India where Indians can't go.
Yeah.
That valley.
But part
I
of...
believe it's very beautiful. That
Wonderful. That's also about 5,000 square kilometers that the Pakistanis had to cede to China because to settle the boundary dispute. China has a boundary, land boundary with 14 countries. And only 2 countries they have not settled the boundary dispute with. India and Bhutan. These are the only 2 countries. With all other countries which they have a border with, they have settled the boundary dispute in give or take, mostly take, never give. So Pakistanis lost Shaksgam Valley and settled the boundary dispute with China. And Karakoram Pass, with which we refer to from NG 942, had that succeeded, it would have had Pakistan, China and India at that tri-junction.
So one question I had for you that, I was reading about in one of your interviews, you said that you did your early schooling in Karachi and then you left Karachi and came to India and joined Bal Bharti, then FO Central School and then Shriram College of Commerce. So how come you were in Karachi?
See, my dad was posted in the High Commission over there, and during the 62 war, we were there in Karachi.
The India-China war.
Indo-China war. I saw all of it. But by 65, we were back in India. And that was the time, for the first time in the Indian High Commission, a certain number of people were told to leave Pakistan in 96 hours. Or was it 72 hours, something like that. And similar number of men, whoever were told to leave Pakistan, similar number of men from India also would have been told, because that's a very reciprocal thing. But that was for the first time. I have memories of the aircraft coming from India, bringing us back to Delhi. So my initial schooling was in Karachi. We were staying on Clifton Road, what is now where you find, it is something like what we call Lutyens Delhi. So Clifton Road in Karachi is like that. And I was studying in a school called Wendy's School.
The Bhuttos lived, I think, in Karachi.
Yeah, Bhuttos, everybody. The top notch of Pakistan are on Clifton Road, including Dawood.
Dawood Ibrahim, yes.
Yeah,
are you watching? Gen Kulkarni might just return there.
He also stays on Clifton Road only, guarded heavily by the Pak Army for him. But that's the way. And I studied in Wendy's School, which was not very far. And
why did India-Pakistan do this? Because the war was with China.
No, but 65 we were going to...
the India-Pakistan conflict.
After 62 war, Ayub
62
Khan
was,
thought that it is an opportune time, because India has lost to China and that nothing better. And he used to think that, he used to call Indians topi walas. ये तो
घास खाने वाले हैं.
हम इनको handle कर लेंगे, हम पठान हैं. And you'd be surprised, Patton tanks, your saber jets, latest of artillery equipment, all had started coming to Pakistan from United States. And all of it was being assembled. It would come in shipment to Karachi.
This was preparation for the first war, second war.
To do it in 65.
In 65.
And he did it.
Right.
It is just that you can have equipment, but to use it in a manner like a professional, it takes a lot of time.
But you were just a child at that time and your parents told you what? That we're going back to India?
Yeah, going back to India. And while going, it was fantastic. I think we went in a ship. While going, we went in a ship.
Karachi to Mumbai.
Mumbai to Karachi. And took I think may have taken 4 or 5 days. So it was fantastic. As children, we were enjoying on the ship, khana, pina, masti. While coming also, it was damn good. Because there is an air hostess who came with a tray with a lot of chocolates. And I still remember, I asked her, how many can I take?
This was Air India probably, right? Yeah.
Take as many as you want. So it was free for all thereafter.
Yeah. So Karachi was the consulate out there, right?
Yes. No. We had an embassy,
You had an embassy.
High Commission in Karachi. Subsequently, that Islamabad as a capital came up.
Okay.
That now you have Karachi virtually as a consulate. But those days,
It
it
was-
was, and I think the ambassador was not the present, the old called G. Parthasarathy, who was
yes.
also India's ambassador in
doyen
China.
of foreign service.
Yeah,
Yes.
India's ambassador in China, who
Yes.
was also India's ambassador in Pakistan. And, I have memories of his in the High Commission. Jana, picture dekhna, chat ke upar ja karke, they would have a big screen and screening movies for us. Bismillah Khan coming and playing Shehnai, all these actors, actresses coming there, entertaining us.
Because there was a lot of human
Lot
contact
of-
which was going on in the
yes.
60s,
There
right?
was nothing. In fact, what Ayub did in 65 was quite a stab in the back, because Ayub Khan is not, he was very good friends. And, but he thought, he always thought, even if you read Kasuri's book on neither a hawk nor a dove, that also he says that we used to call Indians Bania. He mentioned the word Bania. So he chose to be a call for all Hindus Baniyas. So that is the way, he said, but it was accepted. Matlab, nobody minded it. It was well accepted, and the Indians would call them Musla. It's just Kasuri himself has written in his book. In that,
Yeah,
the hawk
those
nor
were
a
not
dove.
considered pejorative terms in those days.
Yeah, nothing,
but
nothing.
today
These
you
were-
don't say that. But actually, if you listen in to some of the commentary that comes in from Pakistan, they still say that ki baniya Hindu.
Yeah.
In fact,
But together-
Jane Dikshit's book also says that when he went visiting to a Pakistani home in Karachi, they turn around and the kid turns around and says, "Dekho, dekho, Hindu kutta aaya."
See,
because
this kind of this
induction.
thing in Pakistan, I think came a little later, because I have distinct memories of the books that were there in Pakistan at that time. It didn't have that kind of a hatred then as much. Now that I think Ziaul Haq,
Cuts
yeah,
Yeah,
I think it
that
is after
everything
Ziaul
changed.
Haq that
Correct.
leading India with 1,000 cut, that radicalization, that kind of Islamic Republic of Pakistan and all that kind of a thing, and the hatred for the Indians developed now. And now you find that the education system in Pakistan is to absolutely hate.
So I've met many foreign service officers who've served in Karachi, served in Islamabad, and they always have stories to tell about how the ISI used to go follow them around and all that. Do you have any memories at that time, in the 60s?
Yeah, I do have what my father told me then. They would meet and interact not with the ISI, but with people in the cricket stadium, in the football stadium. Go meet each other there and exchange information with not the ISI, about ISI.
They would have somebody tailing you, basically.
100%. There's no question. I still remember, I have memories of that chana chur garam. You would bring it in the newspaper wrapped, ek ana.
Yeah.
Ek ana mein wo chana chur garam, you would wrap like this in a newspaper and pour in that steel nahi wo iron ka wo
Yeah.
ek छोटा सा निकालो,
But you
उसमें
knew
चना
who he
चूर डालो
was.
और हमको एक आने में दो. Of course, they would be coming and feeding and very nice.
You can't mistake, because I remember in Islamabad, me and I a journalist and I, we were there. We would cover the events during the day, और शाम को हम लोग निकल पड़ते थे. So we used to go to Jinnah Super, which is one of their markets, to shop around, and there would be this one man who would come. So the second day when we were going, we two more journalists were there. तो हम लोग 3 थे या 4 थे. And this man was still standing there. So we just turned to him and said, "आज नहीं आएंगे आप?" So he says, "हमारी motorcycle नहीं आई आज." So he said, "चलो हमारी गाड़ी में आ जाओ." The guy actually came with us because they didn't have, their tail did not turn up. So he came and sat in our car and he came with
It
us.
is unfortunate that Pakistan has turned the way it has turned. I have such lovely memories. I remember as a child, I would be talking in Marathi, my mother tongue, with my father, and ask him for something. I want this or I want that. Or you better buy this for me and that. And he would say, "Okay, chalo, let's go." That chap who's selling would speak in Marathi back sometimes, telling my dad that your son is asking for it in Marathi, is talking. Why don't you give it to him? Huh? My father said, "How do you know Marathi?" He says, "I've lived my life in Mumbai. I've shifted to Karachi now." So they could speak Marathi so fluently that it would shock us. So there is nothing that you could do in thinking we are talking in code. But I'm talking with my father in Marathi and my father is talking to me in Marathi. Nobody understands. No, he is understanding everything because he's born and brought up in Mumbai.
Interesting. Interesting.
So, it is unfortunate. I would even look back and say unfortunate that as a nation, had Pakistan not turned radical the way they have turned radical and had they not been instigated, and again that instigation comes from China. The Chinese instigated Pakistan when the Shaksgam Valley was being handed over. It is Pakistan was being advised by China that look, you two people look alike. You talk the same language. Why don't you do what we have done in 62 to them? And that is what prompted Ayub Khan to do what he did in Kashmir. So all this instigation, because somehow the Chinese wouldn't like India because of British imperialism. And they thought that we were all talking English and, we are not what we are supposed to be and this thing. So much so that when Pandit Nehru was visiting China for the first time, he was being briefed that the word of command in the army are English. Stand at ease, attention. And it was turned to Savdhan and Vishram because the Chinese may not at a point of time think कि ये तो आप तो अभी भी ब्रिटिश फौज हो भाई, आप तो अभी भी attention और stand at ease करते हो. So we slowly and steadily we turn Indianization जो धीरे 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 करके वक्त लगा. इतना ही नहीं, when Khrushchev came in 1955 and when he saw King George's statue where Subhash Chandra Bose's statue is there in that canopy, he was upset. He was extremely upset. He said, what is King George V doing over there? But when Queen Elizabeth came in 62 or 61 or something like, she was thrilled that her grandfather or father's this thing is, there in the canopy. And in 68, Mrs. Gandhi had to remove King George under pressure. And it has taken us how many years from 1968 to put Subhash Chandra Bose over there. Just see the Indianization and the, that love for our own culture, love for our own history, understanding. It takes many years and many years for people to keep lying also, not telling you the truth of what has happened. As I told you, 10 Aurangzeb Lane, Jinnah used to be staying there and how he was this thing. And Jinnah was all set to celebrate Eid in Srinagar when the invasion took place. He was told very clearly, Aap chalo, you stage forward, you will celebrate Eid in Srinagar. 27th of October, we have signed the instrument of accession.
That we will take that.
By
Pakistan was saying
3rd
that.
of November, when the Srinagar airfield, जहाँ पे बदगाम का battle हुआ है, Major Somnath Sharma gets the Paramveer Chakra, posthumous. Had it not, it was the defense. How else could we have gone across to Srinagar? There was no Banihal. We had to cross over. And it was snowing. It's November. You have to go back to think आज का November में बर्फ गिरे ना गिरे. उस वक्त November मतलब बर्फ, ठंड. And you can't cross. The only way you could go to Srinagar was by air. And had we not got that airfield, we would have lost.
Yeah.
We would have lost Srinagar. If not for the way the troops were being inducted, all by air. Everybody was inducted by air. Imagine at that point of time, all aircrafts in India, wherever they were, whether Jam Air, Indian Airlines, जो भी Air India, जिसके पास भी हवाई जहाज था, किसी महाराजा के पास भी था, that was all made available to just transporting troops to Srinagar.
Yeah.
And that is how we could protect JNK.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we would have lost.
Yeah.
And all planned, orchestrated for Pakistan by the British.
In this Aurangzeb Lane.
Aurangzeb Lane, and by the British. And Auchin Lake is the commander-in-chief. And you have a British chief. And you have India also by British.
The divide and rule.
Until recently, we had this Auchin Lake, Sainik Aramgre, Delhi station.
And you'll be surprised. Auchin Lake was under so much of pressure. Auchin Lake's wife ran away with the air marshal. And because she went with air marshal of
this is getting very interesting. Okay.
Because she went with the UK's air marshal, Auchin Lake was deeply hurt that his wife had left him and had now married the air marshal of Mountbatten. Knowing fully well this has happened, he sent the Air Force chief back to UK. And Auchin Lake, unable to withstand, finally left India in December of 47.
And this is the history why the Air Force Chief's house is away from the Rajaji Marg road.
There's trouble otherwise.
You know whose house is next to this thing? The UK High Commissioner's house is adjoining the Chief of Army Staff's house.
Chief of Army Staff.
Yeah, I always wondered why that happened. You know?
Because at that time,
This
the
is the
British wanted to retain, obviously they wanted to see the South Block and the Teen Murti and everything by being there. And
Yeah.
so there is still there.
And everybody ignores it, but now it's come, the British High Commissioner's house is again in the limelight
Yeah.
these days. But well, that's another story.
So there's a lot that in history which we need. Maybe all nothing very this thing, but it affects a human mind.
So,
Is somebody who's commander-in-chief, would he not know what the Pakistanis are doing? Would he not know what the Indians are doing? Would he not alert the Indians ki look, the Pakistanis are doing like this, the raiders are going to come and are going to attack? Would they not know that Muzaffarabad is going to fall so soon and that they have already got about 5 to 10,000 people who are Afridis and all these people from the
raiders.
From Balochistan and all over to invade India?
And sir, in today's context, would the Britishers not know that the Khalistanis are
Of
coming
course,
to create
100%.
trouble?
Why do you think? Thank God. Why do you think the government of India removed that those barriers from their residences over here? Just to tell them, it's a messaging that if we are protecting you, we expect a similar kind of reciprocal protection of our missions abroad. If you don't protect our missions abroad, then I'm sorry, we will also have to remove these barriers. We will protect you.
So General Brar I had on the podcast, and he was attacked in London
Yeah,
by Khalistanis.
absolutely.
He survived. General Vaidya's, after General Vaidya's death, it was, he says, I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to die because I know for certain they will kill me. When is the matter? He said this on air when I interviewed him because he was, and he till today, sir, he opened the phone and showed me, he still gets death threats from the Khalistanis.
Must be. Because he doesn't stay here. He stays in Mumbai.
Yes, but he stays in protection still, which is
Absolutely.
so hard. And after we lost General Vaidya, I think it was like
He was the chief.
understandable. He was the chief.
In 1984.
Yeah, Blue Star.
I remember when I went for my investiture of Shaurya Chakra, he was the chief.
So
So good memories, but then it's just too bad.
Yeah.
These kind of things.
yeah, let's get back to Operation Meghdoot. This did not sit well with the Pakistanis. They
Not at
kept
all.
fighting, and there was 1987 was this major assault when
See,
Brigadier Musharraf when he was
Musharraf himself as
was-
the NSG, their SSG, and as a brigadier. By then he had been promoted to brigadier and he had taken over. He launched attacks one after the other and he failed in all the attacks. And that's where Bana earned his Paramveer Chakra. That's where you found a lot of Mahavir Chakras and Veer Chakras being given subsequently for these battles over there. And it was around the same time, 23rd of June 84, the Pakis launched attack. Again, 23rd of June 1987, the Pakis launched attack. The 23rd June, by and large, is supposedly the longest day. So you have, clear day, almost till about 8:30, 8:45 at night. You can see great distance. So you have the longest day is the 23rd of June. And that is the time twice the Pakis attempted. And that is where at all times Pakis lost and to great loss of theirs. And that is where you found Benazir trying to tell Pakistani Army chief and the rest of them कि आप चूड़ियाँ डाल लो आप भारतीयों को
Yes, in 1989, I think it was when she stormed in supposedly into GHQ and she told
she
General
gave
Musharraf
and
bangles
said,
or burqa or
"चूड़ियाँ
something.
डालो,
Chudiya
आप कुछ
dalo.
नहीं कर सकते हो." And you can't dislodge and you're unnecessarily trying to throw weight over us. You can't even dislodge the Indians.
So these
from
kind of
GHQ.
sharp things that she said to General Musharraf, he
paid
didn't
for
forget it. She paid for it. She paid
had
for
to
so much
pay for
so.
it, yeah.
She paid with her life.
Her father, Zulfikar Ali, also humiliated Ziaul Haq. And because he humiliated Ziaul Haq, and Ziaul Haq also did not forget that humiliation, and he lost his life. And similarly, Musharraf also did not suffer that humiliation by whatever Benazir had done. And though, of course, it can't still be proved, but the fingers are pointing towards Musharraf that she lost her life too.
Yeah, that when she said chudiya pehen lo
Yeah,
to him.
because that was a direct insult to the Pakistani armed forces. They're trying to instigate them that you people are unnecessarily being harsh on the Pakistanis, but when it comes to fighting with the Indians, you are losing everywhere. And look what's happening to you in Siachen since 84. You're not able to do anything. So this kind of thing by the politicians in Pakistan have not been taken well by their armed forces and they have suffered.
And sir, you were saying 27th of April, the first attack came?
Yes, the first firing from
Firing.
the Pakistani
And,
side. And
you-
23rd June 1984 was the first attack by the Pakistani.
And this firing was taking place, this first
From
firing
Belafondla.
and you were at the post.
I
sir.
was at Belafondla.
And what kind of an attack it was from that side? sir?
Beautiful, excellent. Something you've taken me back those days. On the 26th of June, they fired with their mortars on top of Belafondla. And obviously when they fired with top of Belafondla on the 22nd of June. 22nd of June that fired on top of this thing. And I said, okay, fine. If they're fired, I knew something is amiss. So I told my boys, I said, you please dig your trenches. Digging trenches was only clearing the snow. Everything is all snow there. I said, and one of my boy was called Jalandhria because even though a Kumaoni, he had spent a lot of time in Punjab, in Jalandhar. So we used to call him Jalandhria. So we told that Jalandhria came and told me, साहब मैं नहीं कर सकता, ऐसे करो, कल सवेरे stand 2 में मैं कर दूंगा. Stand 2 meant, in the morning we would all be occupying our trenches at about 4:30 around first light के आसपास. I'll clear the trench and you will see it clear. But forget about today. I'm not going to clear it. I'm tired. So I said, Jalandhria, you have to do your job here. He said, sir, and he prevailed upon me by his talk. And I said, okay, in the morning you do it. So that was on the 22nd of June. 23rd June, there was a boy called Chanchal. And he was on the front edge of Belafondla. And suddenly a boy came to me and he told, in the morning at about 4 o'clock, sir, Dushman.
Oh my God.
I said, Dushman. I had passed orders to the boys who were patrolling on top of Belafondla that every 1 hour you must come and say Jai Hind to me or Ram Ram to me or whatever are your greetings, because now the boys were mixed. Some boys greeted Ram Ram, like in the Kumaon regiment we greet each other Ram Ram. Some greeted Jai Hind, some greeted Sastri Akal because there were Sikh troops with me on there. So I said whatever is comfortable to you in greeting, but you must greet me every 1 hour. And I must reply. Or I must say, ha, Jai Hind, Ram Ram, whatever I have to say, I will reply. If I don't, please see whether I'm dead or alive. Because possibly I may be dead and you may not know. So every time they would come after 1 hour, and this was going on for months on. So they would come, they say, Ram Ram Sahab, Jai Hind Sahab, Sat Sri Akal Sahab. And I would, like that. So when he came at 4 o'clock, he said, Dushman. He said, Dushman. कहाँ से आ गया? कहते साहब बेलाफोंडला से कुछ काले काले हरकत हो रहा है. On the glacier it is absolutely white. So movement on the glacier early hours of the morning could be spotted. And I said, who told you? He said, Chanchal. Chanchal ने कुछ हरकत.
He had gone to clear up
he was a sentry. He was sentry over there. So he saw at night he could not spot it. But probably at the cover of night they came as close as they could. And now they had to climb to come on top of Belafondla. So Chanchal told this chap who was the patrol commander, okay, some harkat. So he came and told me. I told them, I said, stand to. Stand to means everybody now should get into the trenches. Now, obviously, Jalandhria had only dug a part of that trench. So that beyond that, nobody could go. So, but whoever had dug at that. Now, because on the 22nd of June, they had fired with their mortars on top of her, I fired my mortars. Now, since I had fired my mortars on the 22nd, the base plate of the mortar had sunk and had firmed in. And by morning, the snow becomes ice, absolutely like pathar. It's very difficult. So it had sunk. Now I find that sure enough, the first shot hit Chanchal on his head, and Chanchal was no more. Now, obviously, because they saw that there is movement that has taken place on the post and that this post is alert. And now the attack is a sure failure because either they could have only assaulted us, attacked us if we were sleeping. So there's no way these people are all alert. They have already occupied position and the firing had started. So now Chanchal, that was the only casualty I had on the glacier. 2 more had been wounded. One got shot on the leg, and yet another got shot on the arm. And all of us were. And then we repulsed that attack. And about a dozen plus of the Pakistanis dead, wounded, and they attacked this thing. That was on the 23rd of June, 1984, that the attack was repulsed. And after that, subsequently, they kept attacking. We had de-inducted, and then subsequently the other
They kept trying to come up the cliff.
They're wanting to come and occupy Belafondla,
Belafondla.
because occupation of Belafondla was very important for them. But during this interim period, they had occupied a height which was overlooking Belafondla.
Oh.
So they used to call it Qaid-e-Azam.
The father of the nation.
Father Muhammad Ali Jinnah's name, Qaid-e-Azam post. Now that Qaid-e-Azam post was occupied by them, that made our stay at Belafondla a little difficult. That made our helicopters come for logistics supply difficult, because now he was on a height which was, and that they got dislodged by Bana and his party of Jackal-i. And it is that dislodging of the Pakistanis from there, and subsequently the post being named Bana Top, and he having earned a Paramveer Chakra, is great. Because to be able to fight at that height, to be able to beat back in Pakistani attack, I can understand, because I did that on the 23rd of June 84. And similar action in a more difficult terrain, a much more higher height, and being able to discreetly be able to sneak in so close to them and kill them, I think it was wonderful.
So Bana Top was also part of Operation Meghdoot?
Yeah, the Operation Meghdoot is on till date.
It's on till date, ma'am.
The Operation Meghdoot hasn't closed at all. In fact, for many years, we did not even refer, and not many people knew that there was an operation, because it was all hush-hush what was going on. And it's only later when people started getting to know, because a lot of casualties started coming in. And most casualties were weather casualties, not more of firing. The first weather casualty was, of course, Ramesh, and the first firing casualty was Chanchal. And before this, and around May, what you had a question to, that there was Belafondla and Siala, and there's a place called Gyongla. At Gyongla, we had lost 19 men in an avalanche. We had lost 1 officer and 18 other ranks of 19 Kumau in an avalanche at Gyongla. So it was terrible, because we were losing men to weather, and we were losing men to firing. And each one of us at that point of time, and you find conditions are extremely, extremely difficult. Difficult primarily because of the sub-zero, which goes very low, -50, wind, the wind chill factor which is there, plus no water, because at night everything will freeze, water will only be there. So one stove is virtually perpetually on in a tent, at least water, pani peene ke liye chahiye. Then even though you have chocolates, you have the works, you have all the dry fruits around in your tent, you can't eat.
There's no appetite.
There's no appetite. Everything turns hard. Egg will turn like a stone and a rock. You can hit each other and probably you'll get hurt. The same egg which you may eat. So it is very, very difficult. But then by then, what you are asking, a lot of research went in, and the DRDO and the rest of them started making food which was which would be eaten immediately, like chapatis. Chapatis would come in a nice packed thing, and all that we need to do is just put in hot water. And put the chapati in hot water, take it out, cut the thing, and you could eat chapatis. You could eat pulao. You could make dal.
So your pet mein roti works.
Yeah,
then.
Everything was pre-cooked.
Right.
Everything that came was pre-cooked. All that we put was in hot water. And in that boiling water, it was with the satchel, entire thing.
All this came from their lab in Mysore.
Mysore, all of it. You find that, the children today, we have all these wearing diapers. These diapers is nothing but when people were sent to moon, and when you have to use this long time, those men, the astronauts have to wear something to sustain themselves. So you find children today wearing diapers. Diapers nothing but from this mission which has gone to moon. You find that.
And the food which was prepared for Siachen soldiers is now going to go on the Gaganyaan.
Yeah.
Same lab is making that.
And the same food helps today. So all these kind of food which is available on the market.
So one question I have to ask you, which we were mentioning, that it seems a little odd that, Indira Gandhi signs off on Operation Meghdoot in April. She does Blue Star in May, and she's dead by November. Can you join the dots or?
See, again, if you see what General Ziaul Haq told his DG ISI Jal Akhtar, that keep Punjab burning. So General Zia's directions to his DGSI is to keep Punjab burning, so that they could take on Siachen and they could link up with China. The aim was not that they are not linked up, because they had given Hunza and they had given Shaksgam Valley to China.
Chinese.
But they wanted that link up at Karakoram Pass. That Karakoram Pass, which was accepted as a border between India and China. Now, the Pakis were also, because of the Hudson's line. The Hudson did not draw, I don't think they would have drawn the line keeping all this in view, but they would have drawn it primarily for, identification of aircraft, more that ADIZ, what they call it. So, they, to ensure that the aircraft pilot knows that he is now flying into another country, because the codes change, everything changes, so they know ki kaise karna hai. So it is with that intention that the Pakis were looking, and now you suddenly find that as a 76-kilometer wedge between China and Pakistan is India sitting on Siachen Glacier. And now Chinese have ensured that the Pakis can do no mischief in Xinjiang, because the Uyghur province, which is completely Muslims over there at this point of time, they fear that the Pakistanis might do a mischief. They don't trust Pakistan much, that they may say our friendship is deeper than the ocean,
Higher than the mountains,
Himalaya,
yeah.
sweeter than the honey. All that is perfectly fine, but they don't trust. I'm
That's
sure they don't
posturing,
trust
but,
Pakistan.
yeah.
And that is the reason why you find that because of the CPEC and the Karakoram Highway, which Musharraf mentions it as the 8th wonder of the world, which the Chinese were building and constructing, which suffered, there was a huge damage when a huge earthquake took place in that area, and because of which the Karakoram Highway had completely been washed away. And now you realize that the Karakoram Highway, the Chinese are there. Now you find in the Pak-occupied Kashmir, the Chinese are sitting there. Sitting because in the garb of wanting to construct the CPEC, wanting to repair the Karakoram Highway, it is not with that intention. That is one. The second is to ensure that this acts as a buffer, that the Pakis don't send terrorists to Xinjiang, because that's the only way that is connected to them. So Chinese are also very apprehensive, because Chinese were themselves surprised when they found some from Uyghur province, part of ISIS. So there's a whole lot of things happening around here. You find that the Khalistan movement being supported by ISI from Pakistan, it even now being supported. Ziaul Haq wanting to say that we will bleed India with 1,000 cuts. So that is still on. You find in 84 all this happening. You find that the Soviets are in Afghanistan. The Americans wanting to throw the Soviets, and Pakistan is helping America with Mujahideens.
84.
All of it
this
around
was
the
happening.
same time. Everything. So you find geopolitics absolutely.
And there's a cyclical thing to it. So I'm going to come to in 2000, the lessons learned from Operation Meghdoot, though it's still on, as you were saying, but still the start of the operation and what we have learned from that. In 2005, Dr. Manmohan Singh said, let's make Siachen a peace mountain. And I quote, he says, nobody fears any threat. 2005, he says, nobody fears any threat. There is no scope for conflict. And this place becomes an example of peaceful environment. That's what he had said. Now, how long will we allow these conditions to prevail in Siachen? Because of the number of men we were losing. Both sides were losing. And he said, now the time has come for us to make efforts to convert this battlefield into a peace mountain. And he added talks were going on with Pakistan in this regard. Of course, there's no information about where the talks were leading, who was conducting the talks. It was just said like this. In hindsight now, so many years have passed. Do you think it was right? Could it ever have been turned into a peace mountain in quotes?
Definitely no. A big no. For a reason, you can't trust Pakistan. Firstly, and secondly, you're occupying heights. Why would you want to lose heights? In mountains, it's all question of heights. Sham Saran has mentioned a part of it in his book.
The Foreign Secretary of India, former
Secretary. He has mentioned somewhere to say that the army was also on the board, and the prime minister's this thing and that thing. I don't think at any point of time he would know more, because he was the foreign secretary. But I would say that we wanted, if at all, such a thing, we would want Pakistan to firstly accept and be able to confirm where they are, because they were saying all along that they are on Siachen. Once they identify, now that we have the means to identify where the troops are, it would be clear that Pakistan is nowhere on Siachen. They were even on the other side of Saltoro ridgeline. So the question of being on Siachen is,
So, but
the
the
bluff
media
would have been
still
called
would
out.
put out these pictures saying that these are our men on Siachen, and then our people would turn around and say, "Ki that mitti is not Siachen."
No, not at all.
That
Nobody
brown,
knows,
Yeah.
You see, what happens is that glacier looks the same everywhere. So you can't possibly be doing, you can make Bahubalis, your things can be done anywhere
Graphics,
and everywhere.
yes.
So that doesn't make, the Pakis are wanting to see that, yes, they are nowhere near Siachen. And you don't trust Pakistan at all. Pakistan is, who do you trust in Pakistan? Who runs Pakistan? The politicians can't be trusted because they don't know what is going on. Remote control or the real control is with the Pak Army. You can't trust the Pak Army because Pak Army, by and large, is always using terrorism as an instrument of state policy. ISI you can't trust. As I said, Ziaul Haq himself telling DGSI, Punjab mein inko lagaye rakh tu, and Siachen will take. So Pakistan is not a country which can be trusted at all. This trust, and you wanting to lose a hide, imagine. Hindsight, imagine the kind of, the feeling of that it's an acid test for a soldier. You ask a soldier today, he takes pride in saying, I served on Siachen. Why does he say, though he's serving 90 days, maybe some a little more, but the fact that you have said now, first woman officer on glacier stays 90 days or will be staying 90 days. Why does everybody say so? Because you take pride. You're testing your human endurance as to, can you survive? Can you do something good? And all that. And if you can survive, that has helped us a great deal in fighting in Eastern Ladakh.
On
Why are
the
the Chinese on the back
line
foot?
of actual control
line
with
of actual
China.
control. Because all the troops, more or less since 84 by now, would have experienced Siachen. Because if they're staying only for 90 days and you have to turn over the troops, quite sizable number of them would have served on Siachen and come back. If you have served on Siachen and lived in temperatures minus 50 and minus 75, you could live in rarefied oxygen. You could live in this kind of weather conditions where blizzard over there, and positions where you can't eat, you have snow blindness, you can't sleep, you can't see, you can't breathe, you find it difficult to talk, you find it difficult to touch anything. If you can survive there and still be vigilant and be a sentry on the post and be able to say the Dushman has come, you think Chinese can face India? Because for them, you find that these people are up and about. And
So
that confidence only comes when you have gone through all this.
The rigors of Siachen.
The kind of weather, terrain, inhospitable terrain, terribly inhospitable terrain. Each one of us. So he's thoroughly, like what he said, acclimatization. So everybody in the Indian Army is acclimatized to fight at those great heights without,
And we can say we have an army of mountaineers who can easily be deployed from eastern Siachen to eastern.
The LAC or the LOC is all along that only. All along the mountains only. Most of it. And therefore, it is a great experience that the Indian Army gets by being on top of Siachen. At the same time, Pakistan cannot be trusted. And thirdly, when you're occupying heights, why would you want to lose heights? And,
So when you say
reoccupying those heights, see how difficult it would be.
We'd have to get another Captain Kulkarni to go there.
Again, as I said, Captain Kulkarni is next because he is absolutely nothing as much. Our troops are great men, fantastic men, unbelievable men. Well, they are willing to die, willing to give their life and be trained to ensure that those kind of troops. Again, you have to launch. You see what happened in Kargil. Why was Kargil launched?
Yes, so that's what I was going to come. Was Kargil a revenge for what had happened in Siachen? Did Musharraf think that we lost and I have to save face?
Absolutely. It was sure revenge by Musharraf. Because he said, I must show the Indian armed forces in poor light. Because he, as SSG commander, failed. All his attacks failed. One after the other as a brigadier he failed. And now he was the chief of the army staff. So much so that when Prime Minister Vajpayee is being introduced by Nawaz Sharif, he refuses to salute our Prime Minister. Look at it. What's going on in his mind? Because he was already thinking of Kargil. He already knew what he was going to be doing in Kargil. And therefore, you find that this man thought that occupying Kargil heights would be a quid pro quo for what the Indians had done to them on Siachen. It wasn't to be. The Pakistanis could not fight the Indians on Siachen and are nowhere near Siachen. But we fought hard to regain our heights on Kargil. But of course, at what cost?
Yeah.
At what cost? So therefore, in mountains, whoever occupies heights must not vacate those heights. And therefore, to say so that we can make it peace mountain, definitely not. I don't think as long as the neighbors are what we have, and we can't change our neighbors, whether it's Pakistan or China, we might well as be alert 24/7. And I would say forewarned is forearmed.
I will quote you in which you had said capacity building takes time, intentions can change overnight.
100%. 100% capacity. If you see how much time it's taking, even to occupy Lolofond, the helicopters can take maximum 2. Now the helicopters don't even take 2. They sometimes take only 15 kgs or 50 kgs per flight, only 50 kgs. Or if there are Mi-17s flying bigger, then they're dropping, they're not landing. So these small ones are taking only 50 kg. A man weighs more than that. So that means he can take only one man with nothing. So just see the amount of logistics involvement, the porters, the helicopters, self, not easy. So once you occupy these great heights, so capacity building takes time. Now if you're there, eyeball to eyeball and mirror image deployment in Ladakh, opposite the Chinese, you think the Chinese will venture anything wrong? Despite what they did at Galwan, they did attempt to do that at Yangtze in Tawang, near Tawang in Arunachal Pradesh. What did that show? That they are probing. We have to be alert. We have to ensure, and what better training and what better, the kind of motivated troops that we have, the kind of training ground that we have, the kind of training that we impart, the kind of equipment that we give, the kind of modern equipment, weapon, the kind of food that we are giving, the living that is available today, the kind of huts that we have constructed for them, centrally heated things that are there, communication facilities available, where Fernandez would even tell the bureaucrat that before you sign a file on Siachen, please make sure that you have seen Siachen. If you have not seen Siachen, don't
You're
sign
talking
up.
about Raksha Mantri George Fernandez, who went to Siachen and who experienced that. Not many people thought that George Fernandez, because he khadi ka kurta pehante the.
His kurta pajama, on top of that kurta pajama, he will wear all this equipment and go there. He's one defense minister who's gone maximum number of time on Siachen, because he realized that if these troops are there, it's very essential. Why does the Prime Minister go? Why does Mr. Modi go so often celebrating Diwali with the troops? It's only for that morale boosting factor, to be able to tell the troops that we are standing with you, we are with you. And once you go there, your eyes are enough to show you whether the morale is high or low.
So also the civilian leadership, unless they see on ground what the troops need, till then they can't sign off on stuff. Like you went, General Hoon went and got all that equipment. Now, had he not seen it, and had he not told Venkatraman, who was the Raksha Mantri, and had he not told the Prime Minister, because for us, in the way Indian Army is, the civilian leadership has to sign off on everything. Right. So I think maybe that is probably the reason why, the army always wants the civilian leadership to go to the forward areas.
And another thing is, after all, we were not a very developed nation at that point of time. GDP-wise, we were not as strong as that we are today. If we are among the top 5, it's great, because we spend about 5 crores per day to sustain our troops on Siachen. So today it is affordable. But those days, it probably was difficult to sustain. And therefore, the need is, all these talks, peace mountain, bana lo, ye kar lo, wo kar lo, to cut down. But, cutting down on costs, even when you talk of teeth to tail ratio, here to sustain 10 men on top of Lolofond, probably would have a tail which is of 40 to 50 men. Then only can you sustain those 10 men. So when you say cutting teeth to tail ratio and wanting to, cut short the army, it's not easy, because the terrain that we all operate in is extremely, extremely difficult. You can't have your tanks and BMPs and weapons starting in the morning. वो freeze ही हो जाएगा. अब start कैसे करोगे?
Well, that's even in on LAC we have these problems, right? कि वो diesel वाली
we have to keep
3 tonners
we have
होती
to
हैं.
keep it warm. We have to ensure that the equipment is functional. The time when you start, टक लगाए तो start हो गया. You can't now be ensuring कि वो start नहीं हो रहा है.
And you have to keep them operational for several hours.
It has to be on for whatever the number of hours it's supposedly. Only then the equipment is functional. So it's not easy to be able to fight or deter your adversaries on such heights.
So, you lost, you were talking about Chanchal and you talked about Ramesh when they passed away. I'm just bringing the human element into this, that, that there is one thing about tactical moves which have to be done. But, like when Kargil happened, at that time our soldiers passed away. We didn't have this all-weather coffins to bring back our soldiers, and those had to be imported. And at that time I still remember that there was this whole talk that coffin tak import karna pad raha hai, that what is it, how were these, till then how were bodies of our soldiers, how were they sent back, and what happened after Kargil?
See, what happens is these wooden coffins will be made. Then the wooden coffins are heavier to carry also. Plus, obviously, you have to cut, ensures that so much of wood is available. And then if it has to be transported, the government had taken a decision that the body must reach the family. If it has to reach the family, earlier we would, like in 84, most of the people who died in avalanche.
Unit pay cremation.
We cremated them there only. And you just sent a telegram to the family saying that
Ramesh and Chanchal got cremated at base camp?
Yeah. And you mentioned about Ramesh. I remember when we went for the investiture ceremony, and because he had got Kirti Chakra posthumous, so his wife was carrying a small baby, about 7 months. Just 7 months baby. And years later, his brother called me up to say that little baby has grown up and he wants to join Fokuma.
Oh. Okay.
I said, wow. I said, nothing like it. What a fantastic. That lady hadn't married at all. And she was carrying this 7-month-old baby, who must have been, she herself must have been about maybe 19 or 20, small. Her father-in-law was from the Kumar regiment. Her father was from the Kumar regiment.
Kumar regiment is one of the oldest regiments.
Oldest regiment, very highly
India.
Decorated. The first Paramveer Chakra is
PVC.
Major Somnath Sharma. Kumar regiment.
And incidentally, viewers, our office is on Somnath Marg, and so when General mentions this office is exactly where the road is Major Somnath Marg.
And you'll be surprised, Major Somnath, both brothers who are younger to him are still alive.
Yeah.
One of them retired as the chief of the army staff.
So.
The other one retired as the engineer-in-chief. The one who's engineer-in-chief will turn 100 this year. 100 this year. And the chief of army staff will be a little lesser than that. And both of them, touch wood, may God give them good life and long life, stand straight.
So.
And can recollect, no loss of memory whatsoever.
Yeah.
And their brother got the first Paramveer Chakra on 3rd of November 1947. And imagine it's 2023. The brothers are alive and they know everything, because they were also the one who is alive at 99 plus, will turn 100. He was a captain. When Major Somnath Sharma was a major in the army, he was a captain.
In the army.
So
yes.
imagine, and their father, a general.
Yeah.
His father was a general, Army Medical Corps.
Yeah. So I'll come back to this whole Kargil. What experience from Siachen did we learn and use in Kargil, and what have we learned and used on the LAC, you would think, that all that's happening in Galwan and in Arunachal?
See, first, of course, the troops themselves.
Right.
It's very essential.
The acclimatization,
The man
all that,
behind the weapon is very important. You could have the finest of weapons, the finest of modern equipment and what have you. But if the man behind it is not mentally tuned and his morale is high, he must be physically fit and mentally robust. To be physically fit and to be mentally robust, it's very essential that he must be familiar under the circumstances he's supposed to be operating in. So when he sees all of it, he knows it. He can sort of protect himself. Though we have buddy system, each one of us, if I'm trained into being able to identify that, suddenly you find that he's not talking much or is showing symptoms of high altitude sickness, immediately we tell the doctor or pick up the phone and tell, moment you lose height, you start improving yourself. So all these kind of things which come there, now you realize how much of weight can you carry, how can you sustain yourself at that great heights. You understand how logistics are important, because it is not how much, it is after all to bring even the 15 kgs of atta at that great height. So many people are required, and each one of them will be handing over to the other person. And otherwise it's flying in by the
So
choppers.
numbers are important. I remember, sir, in
Choppers,
Kargil at
mules,
that time they had
porters,
said
self.
that we keep shooting them
Yeah.
and cockroach की तरह ऊपर आते
yeah.
रहते हैं. In the sense that the reason they used the word cockroach was that you are not going to stop.
Yeah.
More and more men will come even if they
And
get shot at.
it's not easy. It's very easier said than done. When you see a man in front of you dead or wounded and you're still carrying on, it's not easy. You have to be trained. You have to be very motivated to see to it, irrespective of what it is. And that only comes when you know for sure that your family will be taken care of. And that soldier knows that his family will be taken care of. Even if he's a bachelor and he's died, his family gets over 1 crore. And if it is mother or father, they get the last pay drawn of that boy as if he's still in survey. Wife gets it. Children are taken care of. Money comes in. So the man knows, मैं मर भी गया तो कुछ नहीं होने का. He is not there, of course. The individual male who is not there is a big loss to the family. But financially, the family is taken care of. And that assurance, I think, is a huge motivating factor in India. In India, when you
In
have...
Pakistan, sir, the NLI lost so many in
They were
Kargil.
sad, yeah. Very sad. They would not even identify their bodies. They would not even take their bodies. We wrapped them up in Pakistani flags and told them, le jao. That is where it is. I remember in Kargil, there was an officer by the name of Captain Taimur. General V.K. Singh's company officer, retired as Lieutenant General, colleague of mine, Lieutenant General K.L.K. Singh, and his battalion, 27 Rajput that he was commanding, they had killed Captain Taimur and the party occupying a height of 5770. I'm talking 5770 in meters. When I'm saying in meters, you have to multiply by 3.3 to know the height in feet. So you can well imagine at what height they killed. Taimur was, born with a silver spoon. His grandfather was in London, father was a brigadier, and so they wanted his body. And they wrote that please get his body and send it to us. We would like to have Taimur back. I remember General KLK telling them, why just his body? We'll send all your bodies. Why not only him? All your Pakistani bodies are lying with us. Please take them all.
Did they take?
Yeah, and we wrapped all of them in the Pakistani flag and sent them. And they accepted all of them. I said, no, not only Taimur. Why Taimur? And the others, Pakistani soldiers? I said, a soldier is a soldier. You must respect the dead. And please take. They took all the bodies. So,
sir, just want to ask you. You have been Musharraf failed as a colonel, as a brigadier, then as a general. In between, as a major general, lieutenant general, any failures with India?
for him, what would have happened? He would have been a co-commander.
Okay.
And the other things, he would have been in touch with Nawaz Sharif, was the man who made him the chief of the army staff. And I don't know, because he is a different kind of a person, but I do remember reading in a book in which Nawaz Sharif was very known to give very expensive gifts to the co-commanders, and especially the co-commander, so that they are kept
मेरे को हटाना मत.
नहीं they are kept in
don't do a
good humor.
midnight coup. मेरे को जेल मत भेजना.
जेल मत भेजना. And
don't have me hanging from the jail room.
Co-commanders in Pakistan would themselves be saying कि अब तो हम core commander नहीं, हम crore commander बन गए, because he would give them BMWs, give them brand new BMWs. That is the way Pakistan is run. So you have the Prime Minister of Pakistan
bribing
gifting his own co-commander so that they are kept in good humor. And there it is. So you have all these kind of stories. I don't know much about it.
So we had General V.K. Singh out here, and we were talking to him because, I quoted once, he had said that as a military commander, he kind of had a respect for General Musharraf because he came 11 kilometers inside India and he stayed a night because, foolhardy moves that he had done. But he was like, jeetna hi hai. So to motivate his men, he came in and 11 kilometers inside and he stayed the night. Now you tell me, at that time I said, wasn't it foolhardy for him to do that? And General V.K. Singh said that sometimes you need to do these kind of things. Is that true?
See, what happens, firstly, of course, General Musharraf being a commando himself. And you do need to motivate your people who he himself subsequently said, they are not my men.
Yeah.
He disowned his own men.
Right.
And NLI, the Northern Light Infantry, and he called them terrorists, or he called them, ye to ji hamare hero the. Musharraf's word for all his terrorists was, ye to hamare hero the. No, the heroes whom he called them, he disowned them. We had to virtually plead that please take back your bodies. Otherwise, we will give them a good funeral. That is not a problem. We respect the dead and we will give them funeral. But they are your men. Accept them. So definitely, I would say Musharraf at that point of time, to motivate his people, he would have done that. Anybody would do that to motivate his men in whichever form that they wish to get motivated, or I think they require that kind of motivation. That's perfectly fine.
But as a general, he let down his men.
Totally.
Yeah.
Without fail. As a chief, the first thing that he should have done, he should have owned is, even the kind of ill treatment that he gave to some of our own officers whose bodies came subsequently, the kind of things that they had done. I think it was not expected of a country who are our neighbors. Now what? You see Musharraf himself, his own death. Nobody knows what time his body is flown in from Dubai, how quietly the funeral has been given. Nobody knows other than the family where. So obviously a man who did not look after his men in the manner he should have, finally found the same farewell to his own body. So it is, जैसे जो करेगा वैसे वो भरेगा. Musharraf cannot, because he let down his country, he let down his men, and he attempted to do something which he thought that Indians will take it lying down. How can Indians take it lying down? And now after that, if somebody wishes to make a low-hanging fruit, ki Siachen is a low-hanging fruit, or isko peace park bana denge, or ye, not possible. Pakistan is not a nation that can be trusted, because you never know what is going to happen. In 1947, 10 Aurangzeb Lane, Muhammad Ali Jinnah used to stay. Country has not been formed also. Pakistan bana bhi nahi hai. Still then Pakistani officers were going to Jinnah and wanting to plot what they did subsequently in Jammu and Kashmir. Yahya Khan is a G2 to Field Marshal Manekshaw. Manekshaw is G1 as Lieutenant Colonel. Yahya Khan is Major as G2. And Sinha.
71 was being planned.
Yeah, who, President of Pakistan in 71, Yahya Khan. He was Major to Field Marshal Manekshaw later, then Lieutenant Colonel Manekshaw. And who was the G3? General Sinha, who later became
S.K. Sinha.
S.K. Sinha, Vice Chief, Governor and Ambassador of ours to Nepal. Yeah, they teen. And what does Yahya Khan do? You'll be surprised. Yahya Khan took the motorcycle of Manekshaw and told him that I'll pay you later. You give me your motorcycle. Because the same motorcycle, Field Marshal Manekshaw, then as a colonel, would pick him up from Princess Park. Next to India Gate is Princess Park.
Yes.
So they were all staying there as youngsters. He'd pick him up and bring him to office. And he said, while leaving, going back to Pak Army, he said, Manekshaw, I want your motorcycle. He said, it costs so much, yeah. He said, nahi, yaar, I'll pay you. Once I go back to Pakistan, I said, he never paid. And believe you me, Field Marshal Manekshaw told Yahya, partner, you never paid me for the bike, now you have to pay.
East Pakistan. Zameen
You have
gwa
to
di.
pay me for what you lost. Because you didn't pay me for my motorcycle.
You know, I think मेरे बाल सफेद हो जाएंगे पर मैं याया खान की कहानियां सुन के. I
I've
mean,
heard
how
him
many tales
on
about
radio, because we were in the 10th or 11th standard at that time. Drunk. Fully drunk. Yahya Khan. I couldn't imagine. I said, ये पाकिस्तान का president है? इतना दारू पिया नहीं. What he's talking, I think he alone knew what he was talking.
I still remember, sir, 71, I must have been a child or something. At that time, you know, I was like in 71, I recall at that time in school, हमारे seniors बोलते थे, जय जवान, जय किसान, dash, 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 Yahya Khan.
Yeah.
You know, because at that time Yahya Khan was such a villain. He used to claim all kinds of things कि मैंने वहाँ bomb कर दिया, India वहाँ bomb कर दिया.
If you recollect, I don't know whether you recollect, we used to have a news item from All India Radio. We used to say, ये radio Jhutistan hai. You know, and that Jhutistan used to cover all what these Pakistanis were saying, what they are doing and what is happening over there. Obviously, you know, when you're on the back foot, You're always wanting to not to tell your nation
Yeah.
that you have lost the war. Yahya Khan again had a very funny thing. His eyebrows would be like this.
Yeah.
And he wanted to show himself. And he's one of those few Pathans. Yahya Khan, along with Ayub Khan.
Ayub Khan.
Ayub Khan was also a Pathan. Yahya Khan also a Pathan, who were the chief
But it's
of
the
army
first
staff
time,
and
sir,
also.
you've seen the Pak army eyeball to eyeball, like you were talking about. Those.
So many times. I met them at Munabao. Munabao is the place in Rajasthan where from you go to, the train can go up to Khokropa, right across, and you have water trains coming and delivering us water at Munabao. Now, of course, the fencing has been done. Those days, we used to meet them very often at the border pillar.
The wo fencing is on the dunes. I have seen
Yeah,
that
it's
fencing
beautifully lit at night.
no, but I've also seen that wo dune niche chala jata hai, then the fence is hanging in the air. I've seen those.
Now it goes along.
Now it does, yeah.
And it's beautifully lit. It's virtually a tourist place now. People go. I met them at Turtuk number of times. So as people, I remember.
So you've seen this infantry. हमने फिल्मों में देखा है. I don't know whether this happens when you're there and they are on the other side and this eyeball to eyeball. Like in films they show that when you lose a cricket match, कुछ कह देते हो, ये करते हो. What happens? Is it true? Does it happen?
I must share with you two incidents. One in 1978. I was at Tangdar. Okay, posted ahead of Baramulla, and there's a Nastachun pass, which we used to call it Sadhna pass. In the army, most of these passes are named after some
film
of these,
actresses.
names of these female actresses, and some of these peaks also. So if you say Hema Peak, वो दिमाग पे रहता है Hema Peak है, या Asha Parekh का है, या Sadhna pass है, and all that kind of a thing. So it was.
This is all in Jammu Kashmir.
Yeah.
For our viewers and listeners who live abroad, in Jammu Kashmir we have a very strong presence, and General Kulkarni was there. You're talking about the 1970s, sir?
1978. And a place called Tangdar, and we were there. I was at a post called there, and right opposite, overlooking Muzaffarabad. Now, Muzaffarabad is a huge thing. I could oversee on the Kishan Ganga River, Muzaffarabad.
That's Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Just
right
for
below.
Our viewers and listeners abroad.
They had a post which was just about 50 yards in front of me, which was mined, but generally very heavy snowfall. It was New Year. So I thought, their company commander would rarely come. And as a youngster, I was always there, because so that post was right in front and opposite was there. So the company commander came. So on top of my bunker, I had written Happy New Year, 78. And so they must have said कि साहब उनका
Happy New Year हो गया.
ऊपर Happy New Year बोला है, हम क्या करें? So their company commander, whoever it was in the rear, he must have told them, wait, I'm coming. So after a few hours, their company commander came. And their company commander came on top of the bunker, and he told me, Sahab ko bhejo. So I came on top of my bunker. I said, Happy New Year. He said, Happy New Year. I could make out that he's quite senior to me. And, elderly looking, Pathan dress mein, and he was standing in front of me. So we struck a conversation. He said, यार मुझे यह बता, बिशन सिंह बेदी को कप्तानी से क्यों हटा दिया? Now, Bishan Singh Bedi was the captain, and we had lost the series to Pakistan. And so he was, trying to poke.
Needle you.
Bishan Singh Bedi को ऐसे हार जीत तो होती रहती है जी, हार जीत तो होती रहती है, ये नहीं करना था. Bishan Singh Bedi को ना कप्तानी से नहीं हटाना था. So I said, नहीं, it's a question, he's a bowler, and over a period of time, he's also aging, so he doesn't want to remain a captain. It's up to them, whoever has to be the captain. So these kind of conversations do take place. I remember one of the chaps had cut wood. It was a walnut wood piece lying over there, a water point, and आके चोरी करके ले गए.
Goodness.
पाकिस्तानी सोल्जर्स आए, उन्होंने कहा ये लकड़ी का टुकड़ा बहुत अच्छा है, इस वॉलनट वुड चोरी करके ले जाओ. आगे चोरी करके ले गए, because it's a water point where we would also go and get water, and they would also go and get water. So the carpenter probably not able to bring it up, lug it up. So the Pakis took that walnut का piece लेकर के चले गए. In Turtuk, in when we were there, near the water point, and we would have a problem with the water point because in these mountains it's very difficult to have water, and this water would be from springs or through all this, and so there was water point 1, 2, 3. Water point 1, they could come and collect the water whenever they wanted it. Water point 2 is there was a timing. Once the water time 1 had dried up, water point 2 we had timings. At morning they'll come. After that, they will not come. So they will be given 2 hours. आओ पानी भरो और जाओ. Water point 3, no question. It was very much in our, and I put a big drum. So over a whole day, the drum would get filled up, adequate for my men for water, खाना पीना नहाना धोना सब हो जाएगा. So water point 1 dried up. Water point 2 also dried up. Now water point 3, the chaps were wanting to come and take water. I told them, I said, no way. मैं कहा, you have to handle it here. Where is your company commander? I said, I'm the company commander here. I'm not going to let you take water from me. You have whatever strength you have. I don't know what strength you have. But you're coming from top, coming down and taking water jerrycan mein aur upar le jaye. I won't let you take water from my water point. This is my exclusive. 1, I have allowed you. You are still coming down. I have not said anything to you. 2, I have still allowed you. Okay, bhai, pani. Up 3 also, you won't believe that chap was a Baluchi. And he came down. ऐसे साहब जी हमारे यहाँ कोई कंपनी कमांडर नहीं है, हमारे यहाँ कोई कंपनी कमांडर नहीं, हमारी कोई परवाह ही नहीं करता है, मेरे पास पानी नहीं है, जवानों को मैं खाना कैसे खिलाऊंगा, बर्फ़ तक नहीं है उधर, तो आप मुझे कम से कम पानी तो ले जा. मैं कहा अगर पानी ले जाने दिया मैंने तो कोई एक, चलो एक जेरिकन दे दिया मैंने, 2 तेरे एक जेरिकन और 2 जेरिकन से क्या हो जाएगा. And now mind you, that chap has come all the way down, like you're sitting next to me. He's sitting on one rock and I'm sitting on the other rock.
He's dushman.
And he's requesting, Saab, pani nahi hai mere paas.
Bichara.
Or I took out my, packet of cigarette. I said, Saab, cigarette pito. Or he took, and started smoking. So close. Just this way. And we are all, so, because he said, साहब ये मेरे कंपनी कमांडर नहीं है, आप तो यहाँ बैठे हुए इनके अपने अपने जवानों की देखभाल करो, मेरे लिए कोई है ही नहीं, मैं कहाँ से लाऊं, मेरे जवान तो जवानों को मैं पानी कहाँ से पिलाऊं, खाना कैसे बनाऊं. So this is Pakistan.
Yeah.
And I've seen it with my own eyes. मेरे साथ तो हुआ ना, तंगदार में भी हुआ, और that Tangdar was in 1978, this was in 1982.
This has been a real interesting conversation, sir. And though I'm not from the Kumaon regiment, may I say Ram Ram in
Ram
conclusion, and Jai Hind, and God bless you, and thank you so much for the services, for keeping us safe, and all the best in your life, sir.
Thank you very much. Indeed honored. And again, as I said, it is not me. For God's sake, Kulkarni has no role to play, if not for the men, if not for the seniors, and if not for the colleagues, we are nobody. So all of us as a team, and we deliver as a team. And that is how the morale of the Indian Army is sustained. And that is how, hats off to our men who can deliver anywhere, anytime. We need not worry at all.
Thank you then to the
Jai
Indian
Hind.
Army, to the Kumaon regiment, to you, General Saab, and all the best.
Thank you. Jai Hind.
sir.
Jai
Thank
Hind.
you, sir.
Thank you for watching or listening in to this episode. Do like or subscribe on whichever channel you have seen this or heard this. Namaste. Jai Hind. Click here to watch the previous episodes.